Hello and welcome to another episode of the Pick a Side podcast. My name is Joel Moran and I'm here with River Brown and Jack Barteck. This is now episode 32, and in today's episode we're going to discuss the Buffalo Bills' big loss, the Tennessee Titans, if the Colts should trade for a QB, Leveon Bell to the Chiefs, Joe Douglas's role in the Jets' mess, if the Cowboys can win the NFC East without Dak, and Week 6 fantasy starts, sits, and sleepers. So, for the first segment of the show, not today, man. Not today. It's Friday. I'm assuming everybody's day went well. At least mine did. Mine was a boring day.
It's rainy and gloomy.
I hate this weather. The traffic is abysmal.
This weather makes me want to fall asleep.
Yeah, that's a
Rainy
perfect description.
So the Bills lost 42-16 against Tennessee on Tuesday night. So are the Bills, was this an eye-opener? Do you think the Bills are still for real? Or was this just a fluke loss and it shouldn't be taken too seriously?
I know I had to tread lightly because we've been poking the beehive of Bills fans the last few
Bills Mafia.
the last few times we've spoken about them. And honestly, I know that at the beginning of the season I said I wasn't sold on them. I feel like that got taken much out of context. I didn't mean that they were some bad team. I didn't think that they weren't going to be a playoff team. I could have told you from the beginning of the year they were going to be a playoff team because even if the Patriots won the division, I had the Bills making a wild card spot. My question was, could Josh Allen be consistent enough for them to be the team that I thought they should be? Because they have a solid defense. They have McDermott, who I think is a great head coach, and they have good weapons offensively. But I've actually been more surprised. It hasn't been Josh Allen, in my opinion, that's been causing them struggles. Their defense has not been solid, and it's a good unit on paper. But you look at what they've done so far. Other than 17 points in the opener to the Jets, they've been getting hit hard by every other team they played. Every other team has put up 20-plus on them. And, you look at that Rams game, they get helped by that penalty late, and then they get destroyed by the Titans. Granted, the Titans are right now the number one seed in the AFC. It's got to be concerning. It's got to raise an eyebrow. I still think that the Bills would need an epic collapse to lose the division because the Patriots have the setback with Cam Newton missing games, so they already have a leg up on
and
the
COVID. They just got another positive test.
The only other competition in the division was the Patriots, and they have to deal with all of that. So even if the Bills play okay the rest of the season, they're going to win the division. But come playoff time, they're going to have to see these teams and the Titans and the Rams if they want to win. And, they gotta clean up the edges. They got to clean up around the edges.
I'm so sorry. What was the question again?
The Bills, was a loss a fluke or is it showing their true colors?
That's where I'm okay. Now I look at this game as I don't think it's a fluke game. I really think it's just a matter of the Titans playing better than the Bills that night. I still think the Titans are a good team. People underestimated them. They didn't think the Titans can win that game. And I agree with you. The defense has been slacking as of late, but I feel like this game, Josh Allen didn't play well. He threw 2 interceptions. He was 69%. He had 69 QBR. He had 77 ratings. So I didn't like how he was playing. I do think the Titans are still a good team. Ryan Tannehill played well. The defense played pretty exceptional for the most part. And this is just a battle of 2 AFC teams at the top playing each other. It's like when the Ravens and the Chiefs play. You're not going to sit there and say, "Oh, the Ravens, they're not a good team just because they lost to the Chiefs." No, the Chiefs are the best team in the league, and the Bills lost to a good Titans team. They just got to settle back. And we talked about this a few weeks ago that they're about to go on a really tough stretch and playing really good teams, and this was the first test, and they failed. So now they have to bounce back. They got to play against the Chiefs next week, so we'll see.
I think people are being too harsh on the Bills for this loss, but I also think we're praising the Titans way too soon. They're 4-0 and they're first, but the only teams they've beat were the Jaguars, the Broncos, and the Vikings. They all are teams that are not good right now.
That's what you're supposed to do, though.
Okay, you're supposed to do it, but these games were close games. These games are pretty close games. I'm not sure about the Vikings one, but I know the Jaguars and Broncos, they were close. But the Bills, they were out Trey White, Quentin Spain, Matt Milano, John Brown, Zach Moss, So they were without their second best receiver, probably their second best linebacker, their best corner, and their best goal line back in Zach Moss, and their best guard in Quentin Spain. So I think the Bills, you're totally right about this was their first test and they failed, because now they're going to have the Patriots coming up, the Chiefs, the Seahawks, the Cardinals, and even though the Chargers don't have a good record right now, the Chargers are still a good team. But, Jack, you're right. It's all about the defense right now. I think they have the 21st ranked defense in terms of points allowed. And if we're being honest, the Titans were able to be so good offensively because Josh Norman couldn't cover A.J. Brown the whole night. A.J. Brown, anytime the Titans needed to play, you knew it was going to A.J. Brown, and Josh Norman was going to be the target.
That's the credit to White not playing.
And Josh Norman had the low light of maybe the entire season getting stiff-armed by Derrick Henry.
Exactly.
Derrick Henry is the biggest player on the field every time he plays.
But obviously, Josh Allen is ascending into this kind of elite quarterback status, or at least great quarterback status. And with that comes expectations. With that comes eyeballs. So each time he has a bad game or he doesn't play a clean game, he's going to get ridiculed. He's going to get criticized. We're seeing that with Lamar Jackson this year. They're 4-1, but he hasn't been playing that well. We see it with Russell Wilson if he loses with Patrick Mahomes. Patrick Mahomes just lost to the Raiders, and we're asking, oh, what's wrong with the Chiefs? So this is going to start happening to the Bills. And the defense has to step up and help that offense out a little because right now they have no pass rush.
They play next week, the Patriots?
They play the Chiefs.
At home?
They have a really tough stretch coming up. They have the Chiefs, and then if I'm not mistaken, they get the Jets, and then they have a mix of the Seahawks, the Cardinals, and another tough team. I forget exactly who.
The order is the Chiefs, Jets, Patriots, Seahawks, Cardinals,
they'll get it right back
and
when
Chargers.
they play you guys. They'll get the W right back when they play you guys. I mean, I feel like the defense is going to have to step up more than anything next week. As you said, they're ranked, 21st in the league?
In terms of points allowed,
They're definitely going to have to step up next week against a very tough offense in the Chiefs. And they just got Le'Veon Bell, too. So that's going to be a tricky one.
I don't think he's active this week because he has to go through that COVID protocol. But
for real?
Still, I mean, that offense is, with or without Le'Veon Bell, arguably the best in the league. But I think that this stretch is going to tell us maybe not everything we need to know about the Bills, but it's going to indicate who they really are because they are playing the gauntlet. They have Kansas, like you said, Kansas City, then the Jets, which is a cakewalk, but then the Patriots, the Seahawks, the Cardinals, bye, and then the Chargers coming back. It's a tough stretch. So I want to see what they do with this stretch, and if they can come out of that like 500 or above 500, then they are as legit as it gets.
Yeah, I agree. And also, it's Sean McDermott and Leslie Frazier, the defensive coordinator. They're defensive coaches. So you would probably bet that they get the defense together. I would probably bet money that they start playing better on defense. Because right now, the defense just hasn't looked good at all. I mean, it's really about their pass rush, too. I think they lost Shaq Lawson in free agency to Miami. Starr opted out of the season. He was probably one of their best interior linemen. And right now, they're counting on A.J. Epinesa, a rookie, Jerry Hughes, who's always been solid but not great, Trent Murphy, and really guys that aren't elite pass rushers at all. So I think they'll figure it out, but this loss definitely was eye-opening.
Well, I'm looking at the schedule. They gave up 17 by you guys. They let Miami pour in 28 on them. The Rams, granted, that's okay. They're a pretty high-powered offense. They put 32 on them, and then the Raiders put 23 on them. So
the bad thing about that Rams game, though, is 32 to the Rams isn't the worst thing in the world, but when you look at, they had 7 at half, and they came storming back in the second half. That is a concern because you can't have that happen against good teams. The Rams are a good team, but I don't think that they are in that upper echelon of teams.
I do. Now they are.
You do.
Yeah, they are.
I think that first half, the Bills showed how dominant they were, and then in the second half, they let it slip up.
They let off the gas.
Yeah, they let it slip up.
And you can't let that happen against the Chiefs.
But I think it was clear-cut who was the better team that day, and it was the Buffalo Bills. But I do agree with you. I think the Rams are pretty great. I don't know what you're talking about.
No. I'm not saying they're not a good. I'm not saying they're not a good team. I just don't have them in that upper echelon right now.
You don't think they're a Seattle right now?
No.
I think just because they
I
don't
do.
have.
Personally,
I just
I
think because they don't have Russell Wilson that they're not a Seattle.
Like I'm my upper echelon teams. It's kind of hard beyond like Seattle and then Kansas City. You could maybe say the Packers. You could make an argument for a couple other teams. The Rams are one of those
teams. The
teams.
Rams are just as good as the Packers.
No.
Yeah, they are.
I think if it comes down, I would pick the
think
Packers 7 days out
I
of the
think
week.
when the Rams face the Seahawks, they're going to open a lot of people's eyes.
I think the Rams are in a very comparable spot to the Bills right now. Personally. And I think they're both in that proving situation where I think that they can both come out and be they could be the best team in the league one week and then come out and not be the same team the next week, if that makes sense. Like I feel like they don't have that consistency.
I don't agree with that because the Bills, we're still seeing if they are for real or not. The Rams made a Super Bowl.
Okay.
That was a while ago, though.
Yeah,
that was 2 years ago.
That was a different team.
2 years ago
It was
wasn't a while
different
ago.
team.
2 years ago was two
football.
seasons ago.
Come on.
Last year, the offensive line was hurt, and Sean
That's
McVay
true.
reamped the offense.
That offense also relied heavily on Todd Gurley until they got
now
late into the playoffs.
They're pretty good with Daryl Henderson.
Well,
Malcolm Brown,
yeah. I'm
Cam
just saying that
Akers.
this is a different team than they were 2
But the
years ago.
offense is pretty
And-
much the same.
And Sean McVay was also a new guy at that point in time, so there was nothing to base his schemes on.
Sean McVay is a genius, bro.
Oh, I agree with you there.
Yeah, like I think they're still an elite team.
To be fair,
But
the
because
Rams have played the Redskins, the Giants, and us, the Eagles. So, I mean, I get your point, but they've played 3 teams that are inevitably under. They played the worst division in football.
but they came back against the Bills.
That is true. But
And they came back against the Bills not because the Bills let the foot off the gas. It was because Sean McVay changed up the scheme in the second half, and they.
I mean, that may be true, but they inevitably lost the game.
I like the Bills.
Yeah, but you got to see how they lost.
I like the Bills and I like the Rams. I'm not trying to speak down on them. I just don't think that they are in that upper tier right now in the league.
I agree with you.
Even the Rams though, last year was a down year. They went 9-7. Oh, like this year, I think they're in that upper echelon. But
It's a fair point.
with the Bills,
you could definitely make that argument.
with the Bills, I think we all agree that this was just one game. If this continues, then we can start getting into that conversation.
Well, I mean, if they lose to the Chiefs, though, can we really bash them?
I would say that right now this is almost like a caution sign. Like just keep an eye on it. I'm not going to overreact to this. I'm not going to say.
If they lose next week to what we all agree a top 2 team in football,
Yeah,
are we going to sit here and bash them because they lost to the Chiefs? No, that's a good loss.
But then the problem is when they come back and beat the Jets by 30, I'm not also going to turn around and say
It
they're an
depends.
elite
It depends
team.
how they lose.
That is true. I mean, if they get blown out, though, what you going to say? Oh, they're not a good team because they got blown out by the best team in football?
I feel like I can't.
But the Bills roster is supposed to be built to contend with those teams.
I
That's
can't
true.
feel strongly about this team either way until we get into weeks 8, 9, 10. Going into their bye, I will feel strongly about them one way or the other because they are going to have 3 games in a row that are going to be very tough opponents.
I think after the Cardinals game, once they face the Seahawks, Patriots, and Chiefs,
we'll see.
I'll see. You'll see what they're really made of if they're a team that we should really be looking out for in the playoffs and if they can actually make a deep playoff run.
Bills Mafia, I hope you can respect that, and we'll see you week 11 at the bye. I'm not trying to trash your team. I'm actually, it's the weirdest thing. At the beginning of the season, I wasn't, but now I'm starting to root
Yeah,
for
you
them.
actually said in the beginning of the season you don't believe in Josh
Yeah,
Allen.
but now, I mean, maybe it's because I've totally disconnected myself from the Jets at this point in time. I'm still a Jet fan, but I just can't, I don't feel anything towards them. And I actually enjoy watching the Bills. Like, they are such a fun team to watch. And I'm rooting for them to be successful.
Yeah, they are fun to watch. So the Titans were the team that beat the Bills. Do you think this loss, I mean, after going through COVID protocol, not being able to practice, getting caught practicing, NFL ultimately wanting to, discipline them, did this game against the Bills, did this win show you guys that they're a team that are legitimate contenders that can possibly compete for a Super Bowl spot?
Super Bowl's a stretch.
I mean, last year AFC Championship.
Granted,
So
yeah.
that would be the next step.
But all right, let me say this because I like what you said before. This was a keep your eyes open game. Like, all right, spotlights on the Titans. They just beat the Bills. All right, let's look. But this Super Bowl,
I like the Titans a lot. I think it
just depends where they play.
They're going to be in it every week. Mike Vrabel, I love him as a head coach. I think that he's going to get his guys ready every single week, and I think that he is a huge reason in why they made it as far as they did last year, and that's why I won't count them out. I just don't know if when it comes down to a Kansas City, maybe they beat Baltimore last year, so I can't even say Baltimore. But a Kansas City, like I just don't know. 9 times out of 10, I'm taking the Chiefs in that matchup.
It's 9, 10 times out of 10.
I don't know. If they're facing 10 times, I might pick the Titans 3.
I wouldn't pick them.
Really?
Yeah, I wouldn't pick the Chiefs to beat them every single time.
If
I said 9.
If we're at Vegas and I'm betting, I'm gonna pick the Chiefs 10 times. Just off the simple fact that I'm just.
That's not even a knock on the Titans.
It's not a knock on the Titans. The Chiefs are just really that good, and I would pick the Chiefs 10. I would pick the Chiefs 10 times out of 10 on a lot of teams though. So that's not a knock on the Titans.
The good thing for the Titans though, their schedule is very easy.
Shout it out.
Like I'll literally run through the whole schedule. The Texans, easy game. The Steelers is a tough one, but then they have the Bengals. I know you're not going to like this, but the Bears, who right now I just don't think are that strong of an opponent. Plus, we don't even know who's going to be playing quarterback for them at that point in time. Are they going to flip back to Mitch? Or are they going to stay with Nick Foles?
They're staying with Nick Foles. Nick Foles is
they're going to stay with Nick Foles.
Then they got the Colts, who I'll prompt our later topic. I do not believe in Phillip Rivers whatsoever at this point. So I think that's an easy game. Then they got the Ravens, a tough one. But then they got the Colts again.
Browns.
The Browns is a tough one. But then they finish with the Jaguars, the Lions, then the Packers, but then the Texans. So they have a lot of winnable games there. Like they have 3 or 4 difficult games sprinkled in that schedule and a bunch of games they really should have no problem with.
The Titans are 4-0. We all know that they didn't have a hard schedule. They beat the Jaguars, Broncos, Vikings, and now the Bills. They're 6th in offense and they're 9th in defense in points allowed. And the amazing part about that stat being 9th in defense is that they're 29th in yards allowed. So they almost allow the most yards in the NFL, but they don't let teams score.
They didn't play anybody yet.
But they don't let teams score. I mean, even if they didn't play anybody and they allowed a lot of yards to the Jaguars, to the Broncos, to the Vikings, but they didn't allow these teams to score. And I feel like that's an amazing stat. And Ryan Tannehill is playing like an elite quarterback right now. Ryan Tannehill to Manahill. I was high on him last year. I said the Titans were going to make the playoffs last year. I said Tannehill was going to lead them there. Mm-hmm. I love Ryan Tannehill. Right now he has 9 touchdowns, 1 interception. Football. He has a 110 QB rating, 84 QBR, the highest of his career, and he's 11-3 since starting with Tennessee. He's really shifted their culture, and I think the Titans, if they can fix their defense, which is a huge possibility, then they can possibly upset one of the top teams just like they did last year, upsetting the Ravens. The next step for them is going to the Super Bowl. They made the AFC Championship last year. This Tennessee Titans team reminds me of the 2009 Jets with a better quarterback and not an elite defense. A team that exceeded expectations and made the AFC Championship. And in 2010, we know the Jets made the AFC Championship and we're this close to going to the Super Bowl. I think the Titans, this is a year that they either get over the hump or they fall short once again.
You know, I'm so
sick. In an AFC
I'm
Championship.
so sick of you milking those 2 AFC Championship things.
Hey, get off our back. It's the only thing we have.
I mean,
I wonder what it is though that was holding Ryan Tannehill back in Miami, that he then got away from and became so successful in Tennessee.
He was injured a lot.
Then he tears ACL twice.
Is that what it is? I've been.
I mean, it was Adam Gase. We know that.
Yeah.
But
that's what I was getting at. I was hoping somebody would finish the sentence. But I've been really impressed with him. He threw for 195 against the Bills, but essentially he's thrown for 200 yards in every game they've played. And he's not doing it in any eye-popping way. He's not playing like a Patrick Mahomes or a Josh Allen or a Russell Wilson where he's going to be in the MVP conversation, but he is doing everything they need him to do to win football games. And Derrick Henry hasn't even been having as good of a season as he had last year. So Tannehill's been picking up a little bit of the slack without A.J. Brown, who's their best receiver. So I've been really impressed with this offense.
And I think Adam Humphries was out too.
Yeah. And
Corey Davis was out too.
They've been like musical chairs with the receivers or targets even in general, because I think Jonnu Smith missed the game also. But and then you, on top of that, you take in the fact that they've been dealing with the COVID situation. It's been impressive that they've been able to stay 4-0, and I think you're right. Although I don't think they're the best team in the league, like you mentioned, the Jets in 2009, they were never the best team in the league. And in a lot of games that they went into, they weren't favored, but you knew whatever game they went into, it was going to be a dogfight. They were going to be prepared, and they weren't going to get embarrassed. So that's what I see them as. Any day of the week, I'm not going to bet against them, but when it comes to teams like the Chiefs, and it's a very short list, but a team like the Chiefs,
it's only the Chiefs.
Exactly. How are they going to get past them?
Last year they were up in the playoffs.
So was the Texans.
Everybody was up on the Chiefs.
But the Titans had a better chance than the Texans. The Titans accumulated that lead in a better fashion.
I mean, the defensive thing, you were right. They do have to step up the defense. I just look at the AFC as, besides the Chiefs, I think every top team can honestly beat anybody. So I think it's really just going to come down to who's ready to play. But letting the Jaguars and the Vikings score 30 on you is not going to help you in any way. But I don't know. It's just.
But then again, holding the Bills to 16 is impressive.
Yeah, it's just tough with them. It's just so tough with them because they held the Broncos to 14. Granted, the Broncos.
But that was when they were healthy too.
Yeah,
they
the
had
Broncos
Drew
are
Lock,
they're good. Then the Jaguars pour 30 on them. Then the Vikings pour 30 on them. Then they held the Bills to 16. So it's like, what I see is inconsistency on the defensive end. And if they become more consistent, then maybe they can knock off the Chiefs. Maybe. But I think in the end, it's going to come down to what QBs, who's going to outplay each other. And I will always pick Patrick Mahomes over Ryan Tannehill.
I think the part that I least like about the Titans is that we are not going to see them tested over a stretch of their schedule this season. Like every time they play a tough game, I feel like they get a breath of fresh air the next week. Whereas we just looked at the Bills' schedule. In the next 5 weeks, we're going to see who they are. I don't feel like we have that in the Titans' schedule.
I think we do. We got Steelers, Bengals, Bears, Colts, Ravens.
The
you
thing
could
about
make
the
an
Titans,
argument, but like I don't think that the Bengals and the Colts are that. Maybe the Colts. You could make
I
an
think
argument.
just because if it's a division game, is always going to be tough. And
you could make an argument for that Bears, Colts, Ravens, Colts, Browns
yeah,
stretch.
that would be the best stretch for them. And after that, it's pretty.
The thing about the Titans is that they could be in any single game because they rely so heavily on running the ball. But Tannehill has even shown that he can be clutch and he can win games as well. I mean, he had a lot of game-winning drives last season alone.
And I'll tell you what, if they get up early, you are in trouble. Because then all they got to do is pull out the halfback dive and run the clock down.
And they'll definitely do it. I think the Titans are a serious contender because outside of the Chiefs, I think you put the Titans as the second-best team in the AFC.
Yeah. And you look at what they did to the Ravens last year. The way they won that game was getting up early and holding the lead. And the Ravens weren't accustomed to that because they had been so used to getting up by a touchdown or two and running the ball. Right. And they got a taste of their own medicine from the Titans, and it worked to perfection. And you mentioned it, even when they got down, they could claw their way back in games. Tannehill played really well in clutch situations. So
I agree. I think these next couple weeks are really to tell us who's the second best team in the league for them and the Bills.
Phillip Rivers right now is in that same division.
I wish I had those screenshots.
He plays for the Colts.
God.
He has 4 touchdowns and 5 interceptions so far in the season. They're 3-2. They lost to the Browns and the Jaguars, and in both of those games, he had 2 interceptions. What are your thoughts on the Colts? Should they trade for a quarterback at the trade deadline to upgrade from Phillip Rivers?
I want to hear your thoughts.
My thoughts is that it's a brand new system, and we still have to wait and see. But if the Colts can trade for Sam Darnold, they have to trade for Sam Darnold right away so he can be either Phillip Rivers' successor or he can fill in for Phillip Rivers sometime this season. But the problem with the Colts is deeper than just Phillip Rivers. It's not all on him. Even though he makes bad decisions, the problem with the Colts is that their offensive line hasn't been advertised to what they're supposed to be. They're supposed to be advertised as this elite group, but passing, yeah, they are. When they're pass blocking, they are. I think they're 6th in pass blocking, but they're 24th in run blocking. Phillip Rivers was supposed to go to Indianapolis to manage the game and to just be a game manager, but a veteran, right? An upgrade from Jacoby Brissett.
Absolutely.
They were supposed to rely on that running game. Marlon Mack gets injured, and Jonathan Taylor, because their run blocking hasn't been so good, hasn't been that guy that people thought he was going to be coming into the league. We thought Jonathan Taylor was going to be a top 10 running back off a rip.
I still think he's been solid, but like you mentioned, the run blocking hasn't been there. So
But when you think about what he had in Wisconsin, he shattered so many records. So John Taylor and running backs, when they come into the league, they come out swinging. They come out as, yeah, I'm here, I'm ready. Josh Jacobs last year, we knew he was a top running back as soon as he got to Oakland. But also, I feel like the Chargers and the Colts position kind of switched, right? With the Chargers, the problem was they didn't have an offensive line, and their receivers were really good, but they didn't have any time to throw to them. And Phillip Rivers isn't athletic, so he can't do what Justin Herbert is doing now. With the Colts, your offensive line is good, but your receivers aren't. T.Y. Hilton is a good receiver, even though he's getting older in age. Against elite corners, T.Y. Hilton gets shut down. Their second best receiver is Zach Pascal, average at best.
Michael Pittman was up there on the depth chart. He had to have surgery, so he's
Michael
done.
Pittman's on IR. Paris Campbell out of Ohio State, he's on IR. Their third best receiver is this guy named Doris Fountain. And then their tight ends are Trey Burton, who hasn't been good since Philadelphia in his first year in Chicago.
When he left.
And Jack Doyle, who's a blocking tight end. So I don't think that it's all on Phillip Rivers. The Colts have some problems on offense. And at this point in Phillip Rivers' career, you can't ask him to throw the ball 40 times and expect to win games.
So let me ask you something. If you're the Colts, would you give up a second and a third for Sam Darnold?
Absolutely.
I know I would. I would do it
before
before Joe Douglas hung up the phone on me, because if you put Sam Darnold in that offense, the Colts might be a playoff team.
I think they are a playoff team.
I think they might win the division if they had Sam Darnold the quarterback. Because
So what you're saying is Sam Darnold is better than that guy?
Phillip Rivers?
Yeah.
At this point in time, yes.
That's interesting. Yo, remember when you hold on, because this guy, remember when you told me in the summer, you said Phillip Rivers is gonna have the Colts winning the division and he's gonna play one of his best seasons he's played in a while. Remember when you told me that?
Yeah, we're 5 games into the season.
No, I'm just making sure everybody remembers and that you remember what you told me. You talking about get Sam Darnold. He might not be playing towards the middle of the season. That's not what you was telling me.
There's so many different reasons for that.
Yeah.
Sam Darnold has superstar potential.
What?
You get him in Indy.
I agree with that.
You get Sam Darnold in Indy with Frank Wright, an offensive-minded coach. He can succeed. And he has a great offensive line.
Superstar thing is really a stretch.
When I say superstar potential, I'll say star potential to make it seem a little bit more realistic. But I'm saying if you get him in an offense with a real head coach and even a half decent offensive line and weapons, I think that he could be like Carson Wentz before the injury.
Ryan Tannehill right now is playing at elite quarterback level. Sam Darnold is by far more talented than him. If he goes to a system that's good, he can be doing things that are even exceeding what Tannehill is doing. And Tannehill's playing great.
You would say by far more talented, like by far.
I would say so.
If you see them play, yeah.
Tannehill is a better decision maker. Darnold obviously still makes a bunch of young mistakes, but
he hasn't been coached out of them yet.
Exactly. You need to get him in a system, and you can see the flashes in New York. And the big joke is like Sam Darnold makes one nice play a week, and everybody thinks he could be a superstar.
The Jets haven't won a game when Sam Darnold hasn't played.
Exactly. And on top of that,
to be fair, they haven't won a game this year when he played either.
No, but we're talking about last year.
When he came back last year, I believe they went 6-1 after he returned from the
6-2.
6-2. So he can be a difference maker.
And it's not only that, but the numbers of how many points they score, too, changes drastically when Sam Darnold's on the field.
With the same roster that you put out, I believe it was Trevor Siemian and then Luke Falk, and they looked
they were horrible.
Embarrassing. and literally all you changed in that offense was Sam Darnold versus one of those two guys, and it was a whole new world. So, I think it's there, but he's got to end up in the right spot. I think the Colts would be a perfect place for him. He could learn under Phillip Rivers, and you would be buying low. You would be buying extremely low on a guy that was the 3rd overall pick just 2 years ago, right?
Mm-hmm.
And
maybe a 3.
he's still the youngest starting quarterback in the league at this point in time. So you would essentially be drafting a first-round talent for a 2nd and 3rd round pick. I would do that in a heartbeat.
And this quarterback draft isn't very heavy. I mean, they drafted Jacob Eason. He had probably the strongest arm out of everybody coming out of college, but he's very raw. Like, he's not polished. He's not good yet. He's not even ready. If Phillip Rivers really does continue to play bad and they need to make a QB switch, then Sam Darnold would be the perfect alternative to that.
Do you think Phillip Rivers stays after this year?
He signed a 2-year deal.
So he's out. He's in. So you saying?
No, actually, no. He signed a 1-year deal for $25 million. I'm pretty sure.
But I mean, look at
Brady signed a 2-year.
2 years. So you're saying get Darnold to grow under Phillip Rivers?
Yeah, that would be perfect for them. That would be perfect for Sam. Sam could
So
go to.
you guys are basically essentially saying, "Yo, we're done with Darnold.
I'm not
Trade him."
The thing is,
No, I'm not saying I'm done with Darnold. I'm saying that
we've had
the Jets are
this
done with
discussion.
Darnold pretty much.
No,
They're done.
okay, I'm saying not like you, but like you as in the Jets.
I
done with
don't-
Darnold.
Yeah, but also if I'm the Colts, it's not that I'm the Jets and I'm done with Darnold. It's that if I'm the Colts, I'm going after Darnold.
Yeah,
if he's
and
available.
you know that the Jets are going to be willing to take calls on him. I mean, Joe Douglas has literally come out and said he is willing to take calls on anyone on the roster.
He's a goof.
We'll get to that. But, when you look at the Jets situation, it's just you have to pay him in 2 years. And in 2 years, we're not even going to be close. So, realistically, it just makes more sense. You're more than likely going to have the number 1 pick in next year's draft.
The Giants.
And
you talked. Sorry for cutting you off, but you talked about me picking the Colts to win the division.
You did.
They can still win.
I'm just saying though. You did.
Yeah, but
you're talking about the Titans.
The Titans are
serious
4-0. The Colts are 3-2.
Right.
They can still
that
win.
That sounds to me like a pretty good stepping stone.
Not really, because the Titans had a bye week. That's really why.
Okay.
Pretty much, they could lose this weekend and easily be 4-1, and the Colts 3-2. Then the Colts win.
Ahead. They're still ahead.
Not yet, but it's not a big lead. It's not.
But you just said the Titans are the second best team in the league. That's what you said.
No, as of now, yeah,
Okay.
the second best team in the AFC.
Pick the Colts. I want you to stick by what you said. You had the Colts winning the division.
No, yeah, I definitely had the Colts winning the division
Stick
with
by what you,
Phillip
all I'm
Rivers.
saying, I just wanted to remind the world that's watching us that you picked the Colts, and I want you to stick by your word, and I don't want you to change it.
No, yeah, but it's not over yet. That's what I'm telling you.
No, I know
That's
it's
what
not
I'm telling you.
do you still believe that?
With their receivers,
I'll give you this chance right now. You could change your pick or stick with the Colts.
No.
See,
Or ride by your decision.
this is my thing.
Let him switch week 8.
This is my thing. I could care less either way because I love the Titans and I love Ryan Tannehill. I was right about them last year.
You was, absolutely.
I didn't even think they were going to replicate what they're doing this season, but they
picked
did.
the Colts.
I picked the Colts because Phillip Rivers was such a big upgrade from Jacoby Brissett, but also I thought their offensive line was going to be elite. Their offensive line hasn't been elite thus far.
That's not my fault that you thought that in the offseason. That's your thought.
Phillip Rivers.
No, but I mean, if you asked anybody, they would have said this offensive line would have still been elite. They have the same players.
If you go into an offseason and you pick this team, then you're basing it off what you think is going to happen throughout the season. If it doesn't happen, that's not anybody else's fault but the team. But you pick them with the thought that, this possibly could happen, that they could not play this great. But you're going off the assumption that they will play this great, and they're not. But that's not my fault.
Do you think that Jacoby?
Yeah, that's not my fault either.
I know,
because if I pick them based off that, that's not my fault either.
I don't want you to come in here switching picks. I want you to stick by your word.
No, I didn't switch picks. I'm just saying.
Don't give him a chance either. Let him stick by his word.
It's extremely close. The gap is extremely close to who can be first place in that division. So if you want to call me wrong 5 weeks into the year, that's fine.
No, I'm just.
But we'll
waiting.
see what happens week 17. We'll actually see.
No, but you're
then
talking about.
You have an actual argument.
You're talking about Phillip Rivers is about to get benched. You told me he was.
I didn't say he was about to get benched. When did I say that?
You just said bring Sam Darnold. He's probably not going to be playing. You just said that.
No, did I not say if
No,
Sam
you just
Darnold?
said that,
bro,
bro.
I didn't say Phillip Rivers was about to get benched. I said that you could bring in Sam Darnold in case Phillip Rivers keeps playing bad.
And then what you're gonna
you
do?
can put him in,
All right.
or if anything happens, if Phillip Rivers gets injured, you got Sam.
Oh, okay.
There's just a bunch of ways. I mean, same thing with Carson Wentz. That's why you have Nick Foles, and now you have Jalen Hurts. That's why they drafted Jalen Hurts, because Carson Wentz is injury prone, and he's not that good this year.
Okay, I mean,
do you think that Phillip Rivers has been an improvement over Jacoby Brissett?
honestly,
I think he has, because Jacoby Brissett, he had better numbers, but the problem with Jacoby is that he wasn't really a risk taker. I know that Phillip Rivers, his problem is that he likes to play hero ball sometimes, and that's why he throws so many interceptions in the clutch because he just wants to make a play. But I think he's an upgrade over Jacoby. Jacoby's a good starting backup quarterback, and he would be a good starting quarterback. Right? He would have been a good starting quarterback if you have weapons around him, if you got like the perfect team around him. But I think Phillip is a little bit better at reading defenses, but it's his first year in the offense. So,
I just feel like he doesn't have I just feel like he doesn't have that same arm talent that he did to make those hero ball decisions.
What do you mean give him time to adjust? He's 39 years old. What do you mean give him time to adjust? It's not like he's
to adjust to an offense.
It's not like he's a 25-year-old about to be in this offense
So people don't adjust to offenses?
Bro, he's 39, bro.
I will say it did not help his case that they missed OTAs, training camp,
absolutely,
and all of that.
Yeah, I feel like it's ridiculous to feel like it doesn't.
That's for everybody.
For KC, if you got a quarterback that's been in the offense for so long, it's second nature to them.
Everybody missed OTAs. Everybody missed the same time.
Okay, name me one player who got into a new offense this season and is playing lights out phenomenal.
You said lights out. Nobody.
Okay.
Nobody.
Yeah, it's 5 weeks into the year. Phillip Rivers is still learning the offense and trying to know everything about it.
As a veteran, a guy like Phillip Rivers, a star, it should take him a little faster than most people.
Not really, because you got to get reps in. And it's hard to learn the playbook. It's not easy.
Yeah, as a star, Phillip Rivers, he was this god he was talking about. And he was messaging. He was talking about this guy is great, amazing.
No, yeah, but I feel like you're underestimating how hard it is to learn a playbook. It's not easy.
No, I just think it's easier for veterans who's been an all-pro QB, who's been to Pro Bowls, that I think they get it a little faster and easier than like a regular QB.
They should, but they got to get reps in. It's only been week 5. We had no preseason.
That's true.
COVID's messed everything up. Even I think the Colts had to shut down their facility today.
For real? Why?
Yeah, because of COVID. So there's a lot of stuff to go into it.
They had a couple of positive tests, but they all 5 of them ended up being false positives. So they ended up getting back. But it's a whole nother dynamic.
Leveon Bell to the Chiefs. He just signed there because Joe Douglas is an idiot. So is Adam Gase. Leveon Bell is in the Chiefs. So how do you feel like what do you feel like his impact is going to be with the Chiefs? Do you think he's going to be what he was in Pittsburgh, or just a step above Clyde Edwards-Helaire?
I think it'll just be another addition to the passing game. I think that was always one of his best skills. I don't think he's going to necessarily be there to just run the ball. I think he's going to be more suited for the passing game because that's really his strength, getting out there, screen routes, all that good stuff. So I think he's going to fit that offense pretty good. And now they have a veteran running back, a guy who's been there, done that, so that he's going to be able to help the younger guys and get them suited in better too.
I was just thinking the same thing. I think one of the biggest parts of this acquisition was getting him in the running back room with Clyde Edwards-Helaire, who they took with a first-round pick. So clearly they think pretty highly of him. I'm sure they want him to be their running back of the future, or at least near future, until his deal is up. So getting Le'Veon Bell in the room with him is a huge plus. I don't even know if Le'Veon will start for them, but out of the passing game, it's like adding another slot receiver, one of the better slot receivers in the game, because you remember how potent he was in that Pittsburgh offense. He's still only 29 years old. Plus, he took a whole year off with the contract disputes. So,
you could say he took a year off with you guys, too. You guys suck.
Well, he dealt with the injuries that kept him out. So it's not like his body is in any position where, he's close to being done. He's refreshed. I think he's ready to go. And now that you put him in a good offense where he'll be used correctly, I'm excited to see what he does. It depends on, like you mentioned with Phillip Rivers, he's got to pick up the playbook. He's got to figure out the offense. And depending on how well he slides in, which can be a difficult adjustment, I think he could be a big piece for them in an already ridiculous offense.
When this move first happened, I was at my school, and I was talking to some friends about it, and I kind of had a lukewarm take about it. As a runner, at first, I said that Le'Veon isn't going to make much of an impact because their offensive line, in terms of running blocking, is average at best and not very good. But in terms of a pass catcher, he'll be a huge addition. I'm kind of mad about the move because I drafted Clyde Edwards-Helaire with the first-round pick in my fantasy league. But needless to say, I think I was wrong on that, because if there's one coach that can maximize his talent, it's Andy Reid. And at this point, I'm not going to bet against Andy Reid. There's a huge possibility that we see Le'Veon Bell go back into his all-pro form that he was like in Pittsburgh, and that he has about 200 yards from scrimmage against the Jets when we play them. I think there's a huge possibility that can happen. Yes.
That offensive line in Pittsburgh is really great.
I honestly think that if Andy Reid wants to make it happen, he can. Like, they would have to focus on it, but realistically, that'll be like a practice for them.
Not to mention, that's like another, leadership at the running back position, experience. He's been to the playoffs. He's been to the AFC Championship repeatedly. So that's another guy you get in there who knows how to win, knows what it's like to win. And now, instead of playing a rookie in the playoffs, you got a guy who, with veteran experience, is somebody who knows how to win too. So that's like a big bonus for them. These guys are going back to the Super Bowl. I don't see anybody else who could beat them, honestly.
At this point, I think they were probably going to go back to Super Bowl regardless if they got Le'Veon Bell. Now they got Le'Veon Bell, so the chances are obviously higher.
They're the favorites. Heavy.
But when I saw Le'Veon in New York, and this is why I didn't think that his running ability would translate to Kansas City, because he lost some burst. It was obvious when you watch Le'Veon Bell that he lost some burst. Even I was saying that Frank Gore looks better.
Yeah, and the thing about Le'Veon is his bread and butter has always been patient running and waiting to find the hole open up. But you can't do that if the hole never opens up. So you need at least like an above-average offensive line to depend on that run style. And the fact of the matter is the Jets never had that. And I don't know if the Chiefs have that in the run game where every time he gets a handoff, a hole will open up. Because it seemed like every time he touched the ball in Pittsburgh, he would take 3 stutter steps behind the line and a hole would open up somewhere, and he would be able to have enough burst to hit it. That never happened in New York, and I don't know if it'll happen in Kansas City, but passing game alone, it's a huge addition.
I mean, I think for the next couple of weeks, Sammy Watkins is out. They could possibly play Le'Veon
Put
at
him
the
at slot receiver.
Even though they have
don't see why
Demarcus
not.
Robinson, who's not a bad receiver, but, Le'Veon may be better than him as a receiver. You never know.
Yeah. It doesn't even matter.
But I hope he does succeed.
Yeah,
That's for sure.
I'm wishing the best for him. When he was, like, in his short time in New York, he was everything you could have wanted out of him. It was just at the end of the day, he made the wrong – he didn't make the wrong decision. He got his money. But it was not the best career decision for him because –
I think he could have went somewhere else.
Exactly. If it
went
wasn't
to Baltimore.
Exactly.
That would have been great for him too.
We were not trending upwards, even though we might have seemed like it because of a couple more injuries and signings that made us look better than we were going to be. And last year we needed to make the playoffs, and Sam Darnold got hurt. It ruined our chances, and everything fell apart from there. And I feel bad for him because I think that he truly believed he could be part of the group to turn it around, and then everything just unraveled around him. And he still stood tall for as long as he possibly could until essentially his coach came out and laughed at the notion that they were misusing him when they were clearly misusing him. And at that point, it's just like, what was the point of him being here?
Yeah, I agree.
I hope the best for him.
Yeah, me too. Moving on from Le'Veon Bell, we're going to talk about the idiot that that released him, Joe Douglas.
And listen,
the Jets fans have been not criticizing Joe Douglas enough for me. I know Adam Gase is horrible. I know he's a horrible coach. He should have been fired at the end of last season. You could even say when we started 0-4 last year, I never wanted Adam Gase to be the coach for the Jets. And he deserves most of the blame, but not all of the blame. Joe Douglas deserves blame for this Jets mess. And the reason I say that is because Joe Douglas is essentially an Adam Gase puppet. He is only with the Jets because Adam Gase was part of the hiring process to hire Joe Douglas. Joe Douglas essentially is the Jets general manager because he wanted to work with Adam Gase and because Adam Gase got him the job.
I'm going to clip that part where you said that he's an Adam Gase puppet.
He is.
For the end of the season when he fires Adam Gase, and he's still here and Adam Gase isn't.
And he does nothing to make the team better. This is a list of the good things Joe Douglas has done that has fans anointing him as the next great GM. Draft Mekhi Becton. in a loaded tackle class.
Why are you saying that in some condescending tone?
In which, if we didn't draft Mekhi, we were going to draft Tristan Wirfs, who's been a baller for Tampa Bay. If we didn't draft Tristan Wirfs or Mekhi, we would have drafted Jedrick Wills, who's a baller for Cleveland.
And none of you could keep going with the list, but none of the guys that you were going to mention have been the best graded offensive lineman in the class, because that's
Mekhi's
Mekhi
played 2
Becton.
Weeks, though.
Yes, and in those 2 weeks, he was the best
These
offensive
guys
lineman
are still
in the class.
good, though.
And
we were still going to get a franchise
injured.
left tackle either way.
Can I ask you a question?
That's what I'm saying.
Can I ask you a question?
Before you go.
Okay. A quick question.
And the good is that he got 2 first-rounders for Jamal and Bradley McDougall, who doesn't even want to be on the Jets.
Okay. Does anybody
I told you.
at this point in time?
The bad Douglas has done. He inherited a team with a number 1 wide receiver now in Robbie Anderson, a Hall of Fame talent in Jamal Adams.
Wow, now he's a Hall of Fame
and
talent.
Le'Veon Bell. He didn't re-sign Robbie. He undervalued him. Robbie Anderson cried to Michael Irvin on the phone and was so sad he was leaving New York. He was crying. Joe Douglas didn't bring him back. Instead, he brought Brashard Perriman and Chris Hogan. Brashard is a first-round bust, and Chris Hogan is just another guy. He barely played for Carolina last year. And then he traded Jamal. He released Bell. He's lied to the fans. Each time he's been in the press, he's lied to the fans. He mishandled Kelechi Osemele's injury, who's now in KC. He fined Quincy Enunwa for missing 2 treatments for being with his wife. And he mishandled Mekhi's injury by letting him be active against the Broncos. And he mishandled Sam Darnold after he got injured, and they still let him finish off a game. And you see that same injury is sidelining him.
What does Joe Douglas have to do with that?
So he has no role in any of it. He has no role.
Hold on. What does Joe Douglas have to do with Adam Gase putting Sam Darnold back in the game? He's not on the sideline.
He can't call them. He can't.
No.
He's general manager. What about Mekhi Becton being active? He has a role in that.
That's a different story. He does have a role in that. But at the end of the day, Mekhi Becton said that he was available to play. And I still disagree with it. But I want to go back to the point you made about what he inherited, because I think it's very funny that you cherry-picked the 3 good players that he inherited on the entire roster. Because how about this that he inherited? He inherited John Isdick's draft, which in 2 years he drafted 19 players, none of which remained on the Jets roster, none of which remained on the Jets roster when he picked up the Jets team.
So they weren't on the roster?
No. Because it was 19 missed picks in a row for 2 years. Then after that, Mike McCagnon made 34 draft picks. 6 of them are still starting. 5 of them are backups. The rest of them are off the roster, out of the NFL. So in 2 years, that is one of the lowest draft percentages in the entire league.
John Isdick.
To remain. No, that's John Isdick and Mike McCagnon. Back-to-back in a decade, had 2 of the worst GM drafting performances in NFL history back-to-back. So
not bad.
That is what he's inheriting. And the problem is that Mike McCagnon, towards the end of his tenure, put lipstick on a pig by signing Le'Veon Bell to a too big of a contract to give to a running back.
I agree with that.
CJ Mosley to too big of a contract. But you know what? At the end of the day, they were big names, and they got people excited, and they got fans excited into thinking that the team was something it was not, because we had no depth whatsoever, and we had starting positions like cornerback where we had Tremaine Johnson making $20 million a year, didn't even want to be in the NFL anymore. So we had starting positions where we didn't even have starters that could play, let alone backups. And good teams in the NFL not only have every starting position, maybe 1 or 2 filled out with solid NFL talent,
Jack,
but they have solid NFL talent as backups, and we had none of that.
So what you're telling me now is that Tremaine Johnson, a guy that Mike McCagnon signed, wasn't a good player, and Joe Douglas had to let him go, right?
Wasn't $20 million.
He was a good player that McCagnon thought he was going to be for the Jets, right?
Yes,
and he let him go.
On it.
He missed on it. Didn't Joe Douglas miss on Pierre Desir?
Yes, but he didn't pay him $20 million.
Okay, but he missed on him too.
He didn't pay him $20 million for multiple years.
Did he let go of Brian Winters, our starting guard, who would have been the best guard on the team right now? He's in Buffalo right now. Didn't he miss on him too?
And what would he have been to the long term? Because I know what you're going to say. Now you're going to go into a list of players that he let go, like Robbie Anderson. He traded Jamal. He released Le'Veon. But you could take all of those players that you're going to list and put them on this team. And like I asked you that night when we had the conversation, what would the team be with them? A 5 to 6 win team.
This is what the team would have been. This is what the team would have been. Last year, week 1 against Buffalo, we barely lost to the Bills. And
blew
now we should have beat them. And
Yeah,
now
we blew it.
we see the Bills ascending into new heights, surrounding their franchise quarterback with stars. And then we see the Jets and Joe Douglas getting rid of every single player. Right now, we could have been in the same position as the Bills right now. River, okay. We had Robbie Anderson. Oh, also, Joe Douglas inherited our number one wide receiver right now, Jamison Crowder. That wasn't his signing. That was Mike McCadden's signing. Even though I hate McCadden too, but I'm just letting you know that these are good players, right? Joe Douglas had Robbie's good. Le'Veon, Jamison Crowder.
But he had Le'Veon with no O-line,
refused to be aggressive to trade for a Diggs or a Hopkins. As bad as Adam Gase is, you give Adam Gase an offense with Robbie, Hopkins, Bell, Crowder, Herndon, and Darnold, we'll at least be average.
You cannot be serious with me right now.
No, I'm being dead serious.
Then to compare the Bills roster to the Jets roster. Going in before the Jamal Adams trade, because that's when everything started.
Last year going into the season, us as Jets fans had the Jets making the playoffs over the Bills.
Yes, you did.
Jets fans, we thought we had a better roster, but then now you're saying that we weren't even close to them. Our roster was close to their roster. They just kept being aggressive.
But the fact of the matter is, they had and still have a much better offensive line, a better defense, a better quarterback, who has been not even a better quarterback. Because I don't know if Josh Allen is a better quarterback.
No, he's better than Sam Darnold.
I think last year you can say that, but now he's better.
Joe Douglas.
I'm saying talent. I'm just saying Josh Allen has been much more has been developed much better. So right now he's a better quarterback.
So
who's
Jack,
been put
you
in
think
a better
Darnold's more
position.
talented than Allen?
That's another argument. But look, Jack. Okay, Joe Douglas.
And on top of that, they had McDermott, who's a better coach than Adam Gase.
He inherited a bad offensive line, right? What did he do to fix it besides drafting Mekhi Becton?
He drafted Mekhi Becton and brought in George Font, who has been much better than you've given him credit for.
Is George Font
much better?
Honestly, is George Font a massive upgrade from Kelvin Beacom?
Yes.
No, he's not.
He is a big upgrade over Kelvin.
He's one of the bottom 15 tackles in the NFL.
Can I ask a quick question?
If he's one of the
Kelvin Beachum was one of the worst.
What about Greg Van Roten and Alex Lewis, a guy he brought in from Baltimore? That's the worst starting guard duo in the league.
Yes, 2 misses on 1 year deals.
Two misses. Okay, two misses. What about Rashard Perriman? Has he played?
So you're gonna blame him
so
for
that's
a guy
another
getting
miss.
injured?
That's another miss. What about Chris Hogan? Has he been a hit?
Oh, so you know what? Then the 49ers must also suck at bringing in talent because Joey Bosa and Jimmy Garoppolo got
No,
injured.
I'm just saying
That's
the guys that Joe Douglas has the guys that Joe Douglas has brought in have been misses outside of Mekhi Becton, who's been a hit in free agency that Joe Douglas signed, who has hit nobody.
I want to hear what you have to say.
I just had a question because you were talking about how Mekhi Becton, you were being sarcastic with Tristan Wirth and all the other guys after you drafted, but he's been pretty good.
No, Mekhi Becton is really good.
Yeah,
he's
so why'd you say you were bashing him?
No, I'm not bashing Mekhi Becton. I'm just saying that was an easy pick. Any general manager drafting for the Jets was going to pick a tackle in that draft. That tackle draft was loaded.
Mekhi Becton was not supposed to be the pick at 11, though.
And Tristan Wirth has been good.
If it wasn't Mekhi Becton, it was going to be Tristan Wirfs. And if it was Tristan Wirfs, we would have been happy with it anyway. But that's what I'm saying.
But at the end of the day, through 2 weeks, which is the sample size that we can use because that's the sample size that all tackles that were drafted played, Mekhi Becton was the best out of any of them.
Fourth.
So you have to give him credit.
Fourth among rookies.
No, I am giving him credit.
No, I'm saying
he hit. I'm saying I never said he didn't. He missed on Mekhi. He hit on Mekhi. But in that draft, he would have hit on most of the tackles outside of Andrew Thomas.
Hold on. This is my biggest problem with your argument because I'm not saying that he's the savior. I'm not saying that he's going to lead us to the Super Bowl in 5 years.
Okay, you go first. I want to hear your take, and then I'm going to tell you all my problems with Joe Douglas and why I'm so angry.
You already told us all your problems.
No, because I have so much more. I have more. But okay, go.
I'm not saying that he's going to lead us to the Super Bowl in the next 5 years. I'm not saying that he's the Messiah because I don't know what he's going to be. But I'm willing to give him a chance. You are the one that's saying that we should fire him after one draft and offseason, which I think is totally irrational.
I didn't say that we should fire him.
No, because you said multiple times last night that we should fire Joe Douglas.
I
could show the screenshots. I will post the screenshots under the video.
Okay,
he's a little angry.
All right. Obviously, I'm going to say that because I already think that Joe Douglas is trending in the wrong direction. Same way that last year you wanted to give Adam Gase a chance. But then you notice in hindsight that, damn, we should have just fired him. I'm noticing in hindsight that we shouldn't wait 2 years. Well, Joe Douglas is going to be horrible.
No. But the problem was the difference between the two guys is that when Joe Douglas was signed as a GM, the consensus among the league was that it was a great signing. He had a good history in Philadelphia and Baltimore, which you discount. But when you look at Adam Gase, the consensus when he was signed was that it was a huge miss by the Jets. He was bad in Miami, and he hadn't had any success since Peyton Manning, which any of the three of us could have run an offense with Peyton Manning.
Just because the league thinks it was a great sign, it doesn't mean it was. And also,
I'm not saying that it is.
Joe Douglas
to
this point has been bad as a GM, and that's point blank period. He hasn't been good.
You don't think he can improve?
No.
Maybe, but how? Okay. This is my real problem with Joe Douglas. One is that he's a coward.
Okay.
Right? After they released Leveon Bell, he refused to speak on the Michael Kay show to talk about the moves. Throughout this whole process of this Jets mess going on, Adam Gase has been the only guy speaking. Joe Douglas has been a coward. He hasn't been showing his face in the media. You know it, and every Jets fan knows it. Oh, and these quotes are all in different dates, right? But I want to read you a list of quotes that Joe Douglas has said when he lied to the fan base repeatedly, right? First quote: "When I first met Sam's parents in the first preseason game last August, I promised them that I was going to do everything in my power to take care of Sam with protection and playmakers." Last year, when he was the GM, week 1, can we say that Sam has better playmakers this year than he did last year?
No.
He doesn't. So he lied. What about pass protection? Is it that much better? A little bit. Not much. Okay.
Let me ask you. No. Before you move on from that quote, find me one GM in the league that would have done an incrementally better job surrounding him with talent in the time that you've given him that you say we should fire him and he's a terrible GM.
A GM that would have not let go of Robbie Anderson.
There are.
Can I ask you a question? If Robbie Anderson stays, what happens?
Nothing.
We have a receiver that defenses key in on, and other receivers get better opportunities.
So let me ask you something. Why didn't Robbie Anderson have this season last year? It's almost seems as though Adam Gase is a terrible play caller, and we don't have an offensive line.
Without a doubt. Robbie is also having this season because there are better receivers around Robbie, like DJ Moore, Curtis Samuel, these speedsters, right? So but that's my problem. On a rookie deal, why aren't you being aggressive to get the team more weapons? We could have had Crowder, Robbie, N.A. Hopkins, or Diggs. And even why did we have to let go of Robbie to sign Perriman? Why couldn't we have just Perriman too? Why did we have to let go of Robbie to sign to draft Denzel Mims?
You like
we
that?
Didn't. No, I love that. I love Denzel Mims.
Okay.
I'm not sure if he'll succeed with the Jets in this dysfunction.
You were praising that pick.
But I'm saying that why couldn't we do both? There was no reason for us to not re-sign Robbie.
You could have kept Robbie regardless.
But let me go to these other quotes. We're trying to create the best culture in sports. You mean by finding Quincy Enunwa for missing treatments for being with his wife? You mean mishandling Kelechi Osemele's injury, mishandling Mekhi Becton, not surrounding Darnold with anything? He said we're trying to create the best culture in sports, and right now this is the worst culture in sports.
That's your way of framing all of those things.
What about all this? If you're not trying to win a Super Bowl every year, you shouldn't be in this business. Is Joe Douglas, has his moves proved that he's trying to win a Super Bowl every year?
You are actually out of your mind. Respectfully, you are out of your mind if you think you could take issue with the quote, but what do you want him to say? Because that quote had to have come from a question. So what did you want him to say? No, you know what, guys? We're not trying to win a Super Bowl. We don't want to win Super Bowls. We don't want to win games.
He said it.
He
also said this.
He's crazy. He's out of his mind.
He said this. He said this about Adam Gase. I feel like he is the right coach to lead this team. I feel really good about where we are with him and his leadership. Everything I've seen has been outstanding. We share. Keyword, share. They're in this together. We share a vision on what we want this team to look like. All these moves
when did he make that quote?
Gase and Douglas.
When did he make that quote?
Also, I want to talk about...
When did he make that quote?
I'm not sure. I didn't get the dates.
Because again...
I didn't get the dates. I didn't get the dates.
Again, but what do you want him to say to the media? We don't believe in our head coach.
But also...
We're planning on firing him if he doesn't win the first 3 games.
But also, I want to go to this quote. Jamal Adams, when he was going on his rampage to manage Meta, and he basically gave him all these statements, he said this. He bashed Adam Gase, but he also bashed Joe Douglas. Jamal said, why would Joel come out and say, we want to make Jamal a Jet for life? Why would you say that and then not even give me an offer? They didn't even give him an offer.
Who said that?
Jamal Adams.
Okay.
Jamal Adams was talking about Joe Douglas. Jamal Adams bashed Joe Douglas. How do you go out to the media and say you want to make our best player a Jet for life, which should have happened, and don't even give him an offer?
Well, you also have to take into consideration the fact that we're in a global pandemic. You have no idea what's going to happen with the salary cap in the next 2 years. I'm sure it played a role in it.
Kansas City didn't care.
No. Let me ask you something about Jamal Adams, though. He made this whole big stink
Buffalo
about how he wanted a contract extension, but I haven't seen the Seahawks extend him yet. Why is that? Because
they haven't said they're going to extend him.
Because it was never really about a contract extension.
Yes, it was.
He wanted out of New York because he knew that they weren't going to win in the next 2 years, and he wants to win, which is fine if that's the case. But come out and say that instead of hiding behind the contract extension and making fans like you think that it's Joe Douglas's fault.
Oh, so what about you said? So come out and say that. So you wanted Jamal to come out and be honest, right?
Yes.
So why aren't you saying that same thing to Joe Douglas? Why aren't you telling Joe Douglas to come out and be honest? Because Joe Douglas has been a liar.
Because Jamal Adams was not prompted to give those quotes to
How
Manish
do you know?
Mehta. He went to Manish Mehta to write that story.
I clicked the wrong.
This is the
button.
thing too. It wasn't always about a contract, because Jamal Adams, at least if you're going to play for a loser team, at least get paid, right? And also, Joe Douglas already set the standard that we're going to pay Jamal. Seattle hasn't done that. That's why when Joe Douglas says that and he basically ignores Jamal Adams is frustrated.
I just think it's interesting and funny how Jamal Adams was all about the contract extension, and then he gave his list of teams, and they just so happened to be the 7 betting favorites for the Super Bowl that next season. And he ended up with the Seahawks and has not said a word about a contract, because in my opinion, it was never about the contract. He just wanted out of New York, and the second he
just wanted out of New York because he wanted to win.
The second that he heard the Cowboys sent a phone call into Joe Douglas and he answered the phone, which is a normal thing that happens in league offices every year around the trade deadline, his heart was dead set on being out of New York, and he was waiting for any excuse, and he pushed the limit further and further until we had no choice but to deal him. And the fact that Joe Douglas still got 2 first-round picks for it is an incredible job.
The fact that Joe Douglas got 2 first-round picks is because Jamal has 2 years left on his contract, including a 3rd year, which could be a franchise tag, and any team that he went to would have owned him for 3 years, basically. That's why we got 2 first-round picks for Jamal.
But,
not because of anything else.
That's not going to happen.
Him being with you guys for the last 3 years, what would have done inevitably?
Nothing. And that's
if Joe Douglas would have tried to improve the roster, we might have been something. We might have been a playoff team, right? Because you know what's crazy? If all we needed was to fire Gase, why couldn't Douglas had kept the talent and just let go of Gase after this season instead of letting go of all our players and then starting new with the brand new coach?
Because it's not just Gase, and this is what I've been trying to tell you. And this is where
it's Joe Douglas too.
This is where the canyon-sized difference between my opinion and your opinion comes, and it's that you think that this team could be competing right now, and I'm telling you they couldn't be. And
we were in the same position as the Bills last year, week 1, and they did things the right way, which is why they are where they are. If the Jets did things the right way, we would have been at least competing.
No, because you know what the Bills had? The Bills had a solid structure for multiple years through being bad, where they drafted their way back to success. You know what the Jets didn't have? They didn't have a competent GM for a decade before Joe Douglas. And I'm not saying that Joe Douglas is the answer, because I don't know. The jury's still out. But the fact of the matter is that when you have John Isdick go 0 for 19 in draft picks, and then you have
John
Mike
Isdick,
McCagnon,
when did he get fired?
And then you have Mike McCagnon right after John Isdick.
When did John Isdick leave?
2013.
So we're going to blame what's happening in 2019 on a 2013 guy that left.
You've been bad since 2011.
Because when you look at
look at the Bills GM record from 2013?
Because when you look at good teams, they retain talent for a decade long.
Buffalo Bills just became a good culture.
Because I'm not saying that 10 out of those 19
What about the
picks
Bears?
had to
What
hit.
about the Bears? What about the Bears when they drafted Trubisky, they fired John Fox, and then instead of rebuilding the entire team and leaving their young quarterback with nothing, they went out and they traded two first rounders for Khalil Mack and made the playoffs and went 12-4 the very next year with Matt Nagy.
And it's clearly not sustainable because they had a down year next year.
And they're 4-1 now.
And now because they benched Mitchell Trubisky for Nick Foles, which is also not sustainable.
Okay, so the quarterback didn't work, but they made sure they tried to make the quarterback work, and which is something the Jets aren't doing.
On top of that, their roster is much better than what Joe Douglas inherited. Because when you look at it,
they didn't have a number one. They went and signed Allen Robinson. They didn't have a number one receiver before.
Like I said, when you go 6 for 54 on starters and 54 draft picks before you bring in a new GM, it's not sustainable success. He could have went out and pulled a Mike McCagnon and put lipstick on a pig by trading our future assets that we need for a receiver like DeAndre Hopkins. Sure, he could have done that. And we could have won 9 or 10 games this season, maybe, if we went all in and potentially made a playoff spot and given everybody false hope. And then we would have been in the same position 2 or 3 years from now when we didn't have draft picks to draft any talent that's sustainable for the future. We had the talent.
I'd rather DeAndre Hopkins than 2 late first-round picks. I'd rather Jamal Adams than 2 late first-round picks.
Because that's you don't trust the GM.
Yeah, because Joe Douglas is an idiot. He's shown he's an idiot so far. He's a coward. He doesn't even speak to the media. And Jamal Adams left, right? Jamal Adams left because why? Because ultimately he wanted to win. Because ultimately he believed the statement from Joe Douglas when he said, if you're not in this business to win a Super Bowl every year, then you shouldn't be in it. So Joe Douglas lied. Joe Douglas is trying to lose.
Hold on. So you think that Joe Douglas is a coward, but Jamal Adams isn't a coward?
He's not. He's a president. He's a pres.
No. But he's not a coward when he said he's here to stay. He's built for this. He wants dogs in the locker room. But now, the second there's anything going wrong with the team, he's on the first flight out. And he's not a coward.
It wasn't what's going wrong with the team. He even said, in the interview with Manish Mehta, Jamal,
the hit piece.
No, yeah, Jamal
on his way out.
Jamal Adams even
another cowardly move.
No, Jamal Adams even said, if they don't trade me, I'll still show up for everything because I'm a team first guy and I'm gonna be there for my teammates. He was still gonna practice with us. He said he was gonna show up.
It's a very easy thing to say. After it's a very traded easy and you're on the plane.
And he wasn't traded.
And you're writing
at that point he wasn't traded.
With the most hate, with the beat writer who hates the team that he got his press credentials pulled from.
Because he
reported 2 signings that didn't happen. It's almost
Which
like
ones, the Anthony Barr ones?
No. Logan Ryan, and there was another one that he reported that did Kyle Long. He reported that the Jets had a deal in place with both of them, and neither of them signed.
Damn.
After he reported them as breaking news. It's almost like it's 2 guys that have a vendetta against the team and teamed up to write an article together. You could take it as you will, but I'll take it as I will.
I think your mistake is that you're giving Joe Douglas more time. And okay, you want to have this belief in people, which is fine. It's cool. You shouldn't give up on people so fast. Me, I'm already giving up on Joe Douglas. Just like you're giving up on this season, I'm giving up on Joe Douglas.
So wait, hold on. Joel, so you're done with Joe Douglas and Adam Gase?
I'm done with the Jets this season, and I'm done with Joe Douglas. I'm done with Adam Gase. I'm done with everybody that has contributed to this mess.
And you're on the train as if give these guys more time. They haven't had time to really...
No, he's on the time that Adam Gase should be fired.
So you both agree Adam Gase is gone?
Adam Gase should be fired. I think anybody with any football sense believes that Adam Gase should be fired.
But Joe Douglas is given more time.
Adam Gase...
Yes.
This is my last statement. Adam Gase is known to make bad decisions, right? We all know it. But he made the decision to hire Joe Douglas. And he was part of the decision. And I refuse. Well, he was part of it with Christopher Johnson. Christopher Johnson can't even think for himself. So it was actually Adam Gase. If that was his decision, I'm banking my money that Joe Douglas was the wrong decision too.
But the fact of the matter is that the rest of the NFL executives said it was a great move, and he was a part of 2 Super Bowl roster
at the
builds,
end of the day, what are they going to say?
You give no credit to.
Because he was a role player. He was a Danny Green in the corner. He wasn't doing nothing.
That is not how front offices work.
Come on.
Danny Green was very important.
He wasn't the star. He wasn't making the ultimate
final
decision on things.
He played a huge player development role
he was a
scouting role for both of those teams.
He was a scouter.
Yes, and what did those 2 teams do? Draft talent. It's almost like drafting talent leads to a Super Bowl roster down the road if you hit on those picks.
But at the end of the day, he didn't have the final say on who they're going to draft.
When he was the scouting director?
They don't have the final say on who drafts the player.
No, but he gives the main opinion.
He gives them the
GM
information.
Writes the pick in, But at the end of the day,
yeah, but at the end of the day,
you
you don't know if any of the picks that he recommended even got picked.
So you're the one being skeptical. I'm basing it off of what is more likely reality.
No, you're being skeptical because you're saying that he basically picked those picks,
which is what a scouting director does.
No, they give the information.
You're saying that
they give the information to the coaches and the GMs to make the decision easier.
They tell them what's the best pick in the scouting eye. If you're a scouter, you go out there, you give them a list, and you tell them, I think this is the best guy.
So you were the one taking the doomsday scenario that both the Ravens and the Eagles GMs didn't take a single pick that Joe Douglas picked, and I doubt that he
would. And I doubt that he was the only scout too.
No, he wasn't the only scout, but he was the head scout.
He wasn't the only scout. The thing about it is that Joe Douglas. Okay, there are some guys who are good as role players. Joe Douglas is probably a great role player, a great scout guy. But when he's called upon to be the star, to make the decisions, he can't be that guy. And that's what I think he is. Like Karis LeVert. He's probably a great role player.
Wow.
Like, no,
what kind of comparison
he's probably
is this?
a great complimentary role player, but you're not going to ask Karis LeVert to be a superstar. We know he's not going to succeed in that role. That's probably Joe Douglas.
He was pretty successful in the bubble when he was the guy, but I don't think that comparison has anything to do with this. I just think it's funny how you are laughing at me for having some.
I'm not laughing at you
for having some belief in Joe Douglas being the guy when you believe in this roster that when you take 5 guys off of it, look like the worst team in NFL history. You could take any 5 players off any other team in the league, and they would not look as bad as the Jets.
Okay, you take Josh Allen, Stephon
Not
Diggs.
a quarterback.
Our quarterback's
because
injured
we
right
have
now.
our quarterback.
Our quarterback's injured
and
right
I
now.
wasn't talking about Sam Darnold because when
okay,
Sam
so
Darnold
you
was
take
healthy,
away. So you take away from the Bears, Allen Robinson, Khalil Mack,
still wouldn't be good,
and
bro.
Kyle Fuller.
No, they wouldn't be good, but they would compete.
Yeah,
I don't know about that.
They wouldn't get embarrassed every week.
I don't know about that. Not having Khalil Mack is huge. That made their defense elite.
They would
same thing that Jamal
disagree?
Adams.
Wait, what was the question?
I'm saying that you could.
And those aren't even 5 players.
He's brought up 5 players that the Jets have let go, and who is Jamal Adams? Go ahead, name your laundry list of guys.
Robbie Anderson. What was the other 3?
Le'Veon
Wait,
Bell,
how about this? The Vikings.
The
Vikings were second in division last year, right? This year, you take out Diggs. Danielle Hunter gets hurt. Those are just 2 guys. Oh, and they're corners, but none of them were
Kirk
stars.
Cousins has also been incrementally worse.
None of them were stars, right? So you take 2 of those guys out, and now they're one of the worst teams in the NFL.
And the fact of the matter is, they're still competing.
I think the NFC just got way better.
Because they have a good coach. So what you're telling me is almost that we should have kept our players and just fired our coach.
So what you're saying
if Joe Douglas was smart, he would have done.
So you're saying take Khalil Mack, take Allen Robinson.
I didn't say you could take 5 players off any roster and they wouldn't be bad. I said you could take 5 players off any other roster in the league and they would still look like an NFL team.
We don't look like an NFL team because
we
don't look like an NFL team because Adam Gase is the coach. I know that, but Joe Douglas's moves have contributed to us looking really bad.
Even with a great head coach right now, I do not think we're above 500. And that's
obviously
generous.
We're not about 5 with this roster. Hell no, but. If we have Jamal Adams, Le'Veon Bell, Robbie Anderson, C.J. Mosley healthy, and these other guys,
still wouldn't be a playoff
and a
team.
number 1 wide receiver like DeAndre Hopkins,
you're
crazy. You're crazy.
But
see, I'm not laughing at you for
league.
believing in Joe Douglas, but all I'm trying to say is you shouldn't. That's what I'm saying. You shouldn't.
Wait, but you think adding all like firing your head coach and getting a new one would make you guys competitive? Like keeping all those players. You still have Le'Veon Bell with no O-line.
Riv. Let me just tell you this real quick. The Browns last year were a disaster. They fired Freddie Kitchens.
I just want to listen.
They fired Freddie Kitchens. They brought in a great OC in Kevin Stefanski, and now they're 4-1.
You do not have an Odell.
Wait. I'm saying.
Wait.
Look. This is what I'm saying.
What are you saying?
The Jets.
Please just listen. What are you saying?
Cleveland Browns had talent and still were undisciplined and were a complete mess.
Right.
They changed the coach. And now they look better.
They're far more talented than you guys, though.
But you're not understanding what I'm saying.
No. But their backups are better than our starters.
Yeah.
But this is what I'm saying. This is what I'm saying. This is what I'm saying. If we have the talent on the team and we just would have gotten rid of Gase and gotten a good head coach, we would have been a good football team.
But the same way how you're saying we would have been good, you also could have still been bad. You know that, right?
You realize we are playing the second hardest schedule in football this season.
Did you guys play a hard schedule last year too?
No, we played the easiest schedule
To begin the year, we did,
and we still went 7-9.
But still, if you want to be competitive in the league,
That's true.
you have to beat these teams. And at the end of the day, I'd rather a GM.
We're not competitive in the league.
So you're basically telling me what Joe Douglas said is, "Oh my God, we got a tough schedule. Don't re-sign any good players."
No, it's
that's
just
what he said.
that you think we're going to be competitive, and we weren't going to be competitive under any circumstance.
The Jets, my final thoughts is the final thing I'm going to say. The Jets are a joke. Adam Gase is a joke, and Joe Douglas is a joke as well. And I can't wait until a couple years down the line when people watch this video and be like, damn, Joe Douglas was a train wreck.
My final statement on the matter is that you are way too optimistic about the roster that Joe Douglas inherited. They had to go backwards before they could go forwards, and anybody who didn't believe that was blind to what had happened before Joe Douglas came in. And in 5 years, 6 years, if the Jets are a competing team, I don't want to see you rooting for them because you shouldn't be allowed to.
Hey, look, man, if we're going to bet on the Jets being a competent, good team, I'm glad in the area that I'm in.
I'm not betting, but the thing is, I'm not betting on anything. I'm saying let's give them time. You're the one who is basically
because I think Joe Douglas is done.
Hunch.
I think because I feel it.
It's been one season.
I don't care. I feel it.
So are you at least saying that it's a hunch? Because if it's a hunch, I'll accept
I don't think. No, I think everything that I'm saying, I've had evidence for. It'd be different if Joe Douglas was a GM last year and we hadn't traded Jamal and we hadn't re-signed Robbie Anderson yet, and we still had Bell. And at that point last year, I said Joe Douglas is going to be a disaster. That would be a hunch. But after seeing the moves he's made
in one season,
yeah, it's not a hunch. It's evidence enough for me to say this guy's going to be bad.
And I'm saying to you that there is not enough evidence because he has had one draft. And first of all, drafting is supposed to be his bread and butter, which he's had one draft.
Oh, we don't even know if these guys are any good.
He's had one.
Except Mackay. That's it.
And he's already better than John Isdick or Mike McCagnon. Because that is better than
Mike McCagnon
any
drafted
player.
Jamal.
Yes.
Mackay's not better than
one
Jamal.
One player out of 34
Leonard
picks.
Williams is Mackay better than Leonard Williams? Leonard Williams made a Pro Bowl.
Yes.
I don't know.
He is already
2 games.
more
You're crazy.
impactful than
You're
Leonard
crazy.
Williams.
You're crazy.
In 2 games to the Jets,
we had the best run defense because of Leonard Williams.
He was already more impactful to the Jets than Leonard Williams was all season last year before he got traded.
But we're talking about when he was first drafted in the years that he was drafted.
Yes, and he didn't improve at all.
All right, but he was good. He made a Pro Bowl. He wasn't some bad guy.
Listen, we'll see about it.
Well, we also drafted Marcus May, too.
McCadden did. In 5 or... Yes, you just listed 2 of the 4...
All right, we don't know if that same history is going to happen with Joe Douglas. So, like I'm saying, you want to give Joe Douglas time to draft, that's fine. It's whatever for me. But I'd like to see Joe Douglas keep our talent and draft well as well. I don't think that's too much to ask for.
Keep our talent so we could be a 6-win team, not get a good enough draft pick to improve it all.
Because if we have more talent and we just stack talent because he's good at drafting, we'd be more than a 6-win team.
You need picks to draft. So what picks did you want to draft with? If you want to trade our picks for DeAndre Hopkins, we would still have a terrible offensive line.
They didn't trade a first rounder for DeAndre.
But they still traded picks.
If you're telling me to trade LaMichael Pirine and Denzel Mims,
it would not have been
for Hopkins.
Pirine.
He was the 4th rounder. They traded a 4th and 2nd and David Johnson
and Le'Veon, who was the guy that you coveted so highly that you wanted.
No, what
to
are
keep.
you saying? What are you saying?
They would have had to trade Le'Veon if they traded David
we didn't
Johnson.
have to trade Le'Veon. We could have traded somebody else.
Who else? Who else in our excessive talent pool would we have given up for DeAndre Hopkins?
I don't know who else, but David Johnson was called washed. So if we could have gave them 2 second-rounders. Who cares? It's DeAndre Hopkins.
Who cares? The people who are drafting this team for the future. That's the problem, is the mindset of who cares playing with our draft
because
picks.
It's DeAndre Hopkins. If I'm getting DeAndre Hopkins, I don't care if I'm giving up 2 seconds. I'm getting DeAndre.
That mindset is exactly what has put us in this position for the last decade, because the attitude was who cares about draft picks. We'll go out and get 2 or 3 big names, and it'll look good. We'll win 6 or 7 games, but at the end of the day, we have no future.
The Cardinals were a mess with Josh Rosen that 1 year, right, with Steve Wilkes as the head coach. Did they go out and trade Chandler Jones, their best player?
No, and
Did they go out and release Budda Baker?
They got a new quarterback.
You're comparing teams that are not even close talent-wise to the Jets.
Talent-wise, did you see the Cardinals that year?
Did you see the Cardinals that year? The Bears all had...
The year of Josh Rosen, did you see the Cardinals that year?
I don't think
they were unbearable to watch.
I don't think that you've seen the Jets this year. Have you seen their roster? They are not even.
I've seen their roster, but
right
I
now.
think you're really underestimating the fact that we have to get rid of our talent in order to get better.
Yes.
I think that's ridiculous.
I think you are underestimating the fact that we had to get worse before we could get better.
I don't think that's true.
Because you have to trade 5 or 6 good players to get picks down the road to rebuild your team. Yes, they might not pan out, but you're betting on yourself.
Give me the proven players over the question marks. That's all I'm saying. That's what I ask for as a fan. We'll see who's right down the line. We're going to move on to the Cowboys now, who have a lot of question marks too.
Unfortunately, you can't enjoy your 6-win fantasy Jets. We'll see down the line.
Can the Cowboys win the NFC East with Dak, without Dak? They got Andy Dalton starting at quarterback now. The Cowboys are 2-3. The Eagles are 1-2-1 because Carson Wentz has played horrible. So, do you think the Cowboys can win the division without Dak Prescott?
Can I ask you a question? Why did you have to add that at the end of your thingy, as if it's just Carson Wentz's fault?
No, I'm saying Carson Wentz has been horrible.
Okay, but why do you do that? You just why do you have to do that? You couldn't just say the thing.
No, I wanted to give the audience a reason for why the Eagles are in that position. That's all.
It's not just him, but I mean,
I feel like, and I don't want to talk too long because I feel like Riv hasn't talked in an hour over there.
No, you guys are doing your thing.
But
you guys are doing your thing.
I was actually pretty impressed with Andy Dalton and the job he did coming in. Granted, it was against the Giants, who are not very good, but I was impressed with what he showed coming straight off the
Dallas
bench.
Schedule?
Yes.
All right, so I'm gonna pull up Phillies.
I thought that they played well in Dak's absence, but the problem is that I don't question if Andy Dalton could be an average quarterback, because I think he can be an average game manager quarterback. There's no question about that. But Dak has been, call me crazy, arguably a top 5 quarterback in the league over the first few weeks of the season.
His numbers, yeah.
And that is what they've needed to stay in football games, because their defense is so bad early. They rely on the passing attack, which is unfortunate because that deems Ezekiel Elliott essentially useless late in these games when they need to come back. Mm-hmm. And the problem is, if their defense is putting them in those positions with Andy Dalton, I don't think they're going to be able to come back nearly as much. And I think that that's what's going to hurt them. I think that Andy Dalton could be the guy if their defense could be stout, but I question that more than I question Andy Dalton.
Andy Dalton has made 4 straight playoffs with the Bengals. I think this Dallas offense is more talented than them. So I would bank on the Cowboys still being able to win the division, but only because the division is so bad. I think the problem was never their quarterback. I think they can get stable quarterback play from Andy Dalton. The problem is really going to be their defensive, and if their defense can honestly get any stops. If they're going to be this bad throughout the season, then I think that the Eagles probably have the best shot at winning the division. But if they step up, I mean, Andy Dalton can keep them above water.
I agree with you guys. I think Dallas is probably going to end up winning the division. I don't see us. I'm looking at our schedule coming up. We got Baltimore. We got I wouldn't even call it an easy win because it's against the Giants, and we lost to the Redskins week 1. Then we got Dallas, New York. Then we face Cleveland, Seattle, Green Bay, and Saints. So I'm looking at our schedule, and the wins we needed to get were early on in the season, and we just lost to Pittsburgh. And it's like every week somebody new is injured. Every week.
The biggest problem for you guys was the Washington loss, because that is
and the Cincinnati tie. We shouldn't have tied.
The Cowboys need to play all of the same teams that you guys are going to play, but you guys got Washington when they still had a glimmer of hope in week 1 or week 2. I'm sorry, and now they are disintegrating, and it looks like it's going to be 2 easy wins for the Cowboys. But I do happen to think they're still going to win the division only because I don't see anybody else, no offense to the Eagles in the division, that will compete with them. Me
either. I think their roster is too talented. Andy Dalton he isn't a bad quarterback. He's pretty average, but I think we're just all these injuries right now to Deshaun Jackson. He isn't going to play on Sunday. Neither is Alshon Jeffrey. So our receiving core is still the Travis guy, Greg Ward's. I don't even know his last.
Travis Squirrel.
Yeah, I don't know how to say his last. I don't know how to say his last name. So we still got these new guys coming in. So I don't see us being healthy enough to beat these good teams. I mean, we played hard last week when we played the Steelers, but in the end, I just think we're not going to make the playoffs. I think Dallas is going to inevitably win the division.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with you. I think they probably are going to win the division.
It's just the worst division in football.
It's going
to
take another Carson Wentz miracle.
And we know that hasn't happened.
It happened last year. You're such a hater. It's ridiculous how you hate.
The Carson Wentz miracle? I don't know
the fact that they made the playoffs last year over the Cowboys was
I remember when you threw a joke saying
miracle.
If your quarterback has more interceptions than touchdowns, don't talk. You know Sam Darnold has more interceptions than touchdowns, right? I just remember that.
When did I say that joke?
You said that.
Seems like a bad joke.
We were texting and you
wasn't me.
Yeah, no, it was. Trust me, it was you. You said that joke, and it was just I looked at you.
It wasn't me.
And it was just like it's so bad. And then I realized Sam Darnold also has that.
It's not my quarterback. I'm not on the Jets.
No. You're not about to do that.
He doesn't want to root for the Jets unless they're winning.
I think we all
Jack,
agree
can you
though.
put the computer over there.
We all agree Dallas. If they lose, they're done though. Oh.
Yeah, so you're just going to have to move that. So what we're doing, guys, right now is that we're about to have a caller call in the show.
This is horrible adjustment.
Yeah. And you could just admit him right there, Jack. Just press admit. And I guess adjust the webcam so we could see all of us.
I feel so out of sorts right now.
I can't even get in the camera. I'm not going to lie to you. I think I could be done with this though.
Let me see. I think I have a tripod to put the camera on. I'll probably just put it on that.
Can this come anymore? Oh, yeah. Look at that.
Can he?
Yo.
What's up, man? What's up, man?
This is hilarious.
Hold up. Let me try to adjust the webcam.
What's good, Riv?
Yo.
What's up, man? I'm Joel.
What's up? I'm Jack.
Nice to meet you, bro.
Nice to meet you, too.
What you there by yourself?
Yeah, bro. I'm at my crib.
Bro has a Revis jersey.
Yeah, bro. I had a Lev jersey, but I had to take it down.
Throw that away.
Didn't feel right, man. I love the Dalton up there, though. Joe Douglas. That's all we got, bro.
Yeah, another Jets fan.
Oh, don't tell Joel about that.
About what?
Joel
Douglas?
He said Joe Douglas is all we have. Apparently, we don't have that either because he should be fired and he's a joke.
You're a Jets
to
fan,
Joel.
too?
I am, yeah.
We're both Jets fans. Joe Douglas is a joke.
Bro, it's too early, man. It's not on him.
Okay,
it's not.
thank you. Just wait. Just wait.
Too early, bro.
Just wait. If you don't listen to anything else we put out, listen to the segment that he puts out about Joe Douglas, and let me know what you think about the discussion.
It's out already, or you're gonna put it out?
It's gonna be put out. We literally just had
this is why we called you so late is because the segment went on for forever.
We were talking for like 30 minutes.
I believe in Joe, man. What other choice we got?
Yeah,
fire him.
No, literally.
What has believing in anything gotten the Jets?
What?
He's blaming Joe Douglas for 50 years of the Jets being bad.
Bro.
No, I'm not. I'm not.
Essentially, you are.
No, I'm not.
What has believing ever gone
just
for the
because
Jets?
just because I have no hope as a Jets fan doesn't mean I'm gonna put blind hope into Joe Douglas. I know he's not gonna be good.
Damn.
Jeez, bro. That's harsh.
Okay, so the reason we got Joel on the show right now, for you guys that don't know that are listening to the podcast, his name is Joel Dehls. He has Joel. You know what's so funny about that? I called you Joel because my name is pronounced Joel. It's spelled the same way as yours.
Yeah, most people call me Joel too.
That's so funny.
River honestly probably called me Joel for like 3 years before he finally got it, honestly.
I know the same thing. I just called you Joel because somebody called you Joel the other day, and I thought that was your name. I had been calling you Joel.
You know what's so messed up about that is that people call me Joel. They don't call me Joel.
No one calls me Joel.
I call both of you Joel. It's just Joel. I'm not doing all that.
Okay, so we got Joel.
We got
Joel and Joel.
We got Joel Dehls. He has his own YouTube channel, which he talks about fantasy football. It's called the Fantasy Football Football Reaction Show, right?
Yeah, the Fantasy Reaction Show.
The Fantasy Reaction Show on YouTube. So we're going to put the link in the bio for you guys to subscribe to that. So you want to hear your takes, bro. Week 6 starts, sits, and sleepers.
6.
I need this. I got my rosters up right now because I'm in trouble.
Do you all three of you guys play fantasy?
I do.
I don't.
Of course.
Way too much.
All right, what's your records, both of you, Jack and Joel?
I'm 5-0. I'm 4-1, and then I'm 3-2 in the other one.
Damn.
You got to bear with me because I'm in 5 leagues here. So I am 4-1, 4-1, 3-2, 2-3, and 2-3.
Damn.
All right, you guys are sitting pretty. Honestly, you're not doing too bad. But the main thing I want to say is, even if you're 2-3, you're 1-4, whatever it might be, it's not too late. Most leagues, it's a 13-week regular season, right? So even if you're sitting at 1-4, there was one year I started 0-3 and I made the semifinals. So even if you're sitting at 1-4, 2-3, 0-5, it's not over yet. There's, plenty of season left to go, plenty of moves you can make. It's kind of weird with COVID. One of my leagues actually got canceled. We kind of just said, we're not doing money this year. We don't want to get into the playoffs and, things go sideways and then you're in the championship game and you're missing your best player. But either way, going on to week 6, I'll start at the quarterback position first. So my quarterback start of the week.
Wentz.
My favorite. Huh?
You starting Wentz?
Wentz? Nah, that ain't happening. Wentz is definitely not happening. My quarterback start of the week, though, is Matt Stafford against Jacksonville Jaguars. There's, especially in one quarterback leagues, I hope you guys are streaming. I hope you guys didn't pick Patrick Mahomes, Lamar Jackson, Deshaun. I hope you guys got a late round quarterback.
I picked Lamar.
You're 5-0, so listen, it's not, it's not consistent. But either way, my favorite thing to do in one quarterback league is you're going to stream the positions. So each week you're probably having a different quarterback, or you're picking up 2 or 3, having on your bench and play the best matchup. In this case, it's Matt Stafford. So the main reason why I like Stafford a lot this week is his last 2 games with Kenny Golladay back in the lineup. If you remember, the first 2 weeks he had a hamstring injury that really limited him. His first week back was week 3. And in the 2 weeks back, he's thrown for 476 yards and 5 touchdowns. He's averaging 4 more fantasy points per game with Kenny G back. And now they're coming off a bye. Golladay should be 100%. He's one of my favorite starts as well. But not only is it Stafford I really like, is I like the Lions as a whole for fantasy, because if there's one thing you could count on is the Lions doing nothing outside of Stafford. They have done nothing on defense. They're the 4th worst in terms of points per game, giving up nearly 32 points per game on a weekly basis. And Matt Patricia doesn't get talked about enough. He is terrible. Yeah. He's right up. He's getting into Adam Gase territory now with the way he's using his running backs. That's not an exaggeration. He's using Adrian Peterson more than DeAndre Swift.
Damn.
Yeah, I know. There was some stat that said that the Lions are one of the highest scoring first half teams, and in the second half, they're one of the worst because they run the ball so much more in the second half. Yeah, it's unbelievable. And they play soft zone.
I'm mostly offensively because that's what I'm focusing on. But Adrian Peterson's seen 14.5 touches per game. DeAndre Swift, who they just used a 2nd-round pick on, almost everyone across the board said he's the best running back coming out this year, is seeing 6 touches a game. The week before last, he saw 1 carry. They're not using him enough. Unfortunately, this is going to keep going forward, which is going to lead to a bad rushing attack. They're bottom 10 in the lead in terms of rushing yards per game. And that's only good for Matt Stafford because Adrian Peterson is going to keep averaging 3.5 yards per game or 3.5 yards per carry. And Jacksonville, back in the day when they had Jalen Ramsey and Boye and those dogs, that was different. But now they're a great matchup to exploit. They're bottom 10 against fantasy quarterbacks, giving up 22 points per game. And what I'd love to look at is Vegas. You're going to hear me talk about Vegas a lot. So Vegas expects this to be a shootout between 2 really bad defenses. The line is set at 52.5 in terms of over-under, which is the 5th highest of the week. And the Detroit Lions have the 3rd highest implied point total of 28.5 points. I like Stafford as like a top 15, top 12 play this week. I would start him over guys like, Joe Burrow has a really tough matchup. That's why I really like streaming the quarterback, because you get a matchup like Matt Stafford at Jacksonville, who you could immediately plug in and start, and you could have, took someone else in like the 8th round when you could have just used Stafford off the waiver wire.
Tell me, what do you think about these starts at quarterback? Ryan Tannehill versus Houston, Matt Ryan versus Minnesota, Julio is back, and Ryan Fitzpatrick versus the Jets. Which one sounds the best to you?
I'm going to get, because you took my sleeper, so I'm going to get into it right now. I love Tannehill this week, man. So before we get into Tannehill, we need to get one thing straight. Tannehill, he's not good, bro. He's a great quarterback. In terms of fantasy, he's a great quarterback.
You fooled me when you said he's not a good quarterback.
Yeah,
I was nervous,
great, bro. I'm telling you. Now, this is one thing that Tannehill doesn't have going for him. He played for Adam Gase 2 years ago. That's literally the only thing not going for him, because anyone who plays for Adam Gase obviously doesn't play well, and they always have this dark cloud over their head. But we see like Kenyon Drake. Everyone coming in the season loved Kenyon Drake. Everyone loved Devontae Parker. We see what Robbie Anderson is doing now, but I still feel like Ryan Tannehill has that cloud over his head that he's not a great quarterback. But since week 7 of last year, when he took over the job full time, he's been quarterback 6 in terms of fantasy points per game. Like, this is a guy you're talking about. You're starting him week after week. You don't have to think about it. You just set it and you forget it.
The man.
Yeah, now he's quarterback 16 this year, but remember, he did have that bye week because of the COVID outbreak, and he's a fringe quarterback 1, kind of in that similar to Matt Stafford range. But one thing I really love about Tannehill is his rushing ability. No matter what in fantasy, you look at the top performers. Last year we saw Lamar. This year we're seeing Kyler. We're seeing Josh Allen. If you're able to run, because you got to think, most leagues you're getting 1 point for every 25 passing yards, and you're getting 1 point for every 10 rushing yards. You have a guy like Lamar. Obviously, Tannehill is not to that level, but he gives you an extra 4 or 5 points each week. That's really going to, make that floor go up. He's not going to have that 5-point game. Like, he's always going to have a very nice floor and a high ceiling because he's crazy efficient. Once again, though, a really good matchup against Houston. While they've been decent against fantasy quarterbacks, give about 18 fantasy points per game, this game is another one that Vegas expects to be really high scoring. The over-under is set at 53 points, which is the 6th highest of the week. And the Titans also have implied point total of 28, which is tied for 6th. Anyone in this game, I love to start. Tannehill, Deshaun, give me whatever's a high over-under, man. Give me that quarterback. Give me the wide receiver, running back, tight end. Just sign me up.
Okay, so the starters, do you just have quarterbacks? Do you have other positions like
I have
running
everything,
backs?
man. What do you need? I got everything.
Running backs, wide receivers, and
Tight ends.
Wide receivers and tight ends. Give it to me.
All right, so my running back, I'll give you my start, and I have bust too. If you want me to get into bust, we could do that too.
Yeah, definitely.
You want me to give you my quarterback bust?
You might as well.
Give me your starters first, and then we'll go into that.
Okay, so I'll do my starts first. So running back start, Alexander Madison against Atlanta. Did you guys watch the Monday night? It was Monday night, right? Against
Sunday
Seattle?
night. Yeah.
Sunday.
Yeah.
You watched the Sunday night game against Seattle?
Mm-hmm.
Madison is a beast, bro. Like, he's honestly, in my opinion, he's the best backup running back in all the NFL. He's averaged 4.7 yards per carry in his career. He's averaged 5 a carry this year. We saw last week he was getting the most of his carries in the second half when Dalvin went down with an injury. He had 20 carries for 112 yards. This isn't a step down. If you have Dalvin Cook and you picked up Alexander Madison, they're going to put up very similar production. Madison's going to go out and he's going to eat just like Dalvin Cook was. And he's also in a great matchup against Atlanta. The Falcons are a bottom 10 team in the league versus fantasy running backs. And then once again, a ton of scoring in this game. Vegas has the over-under at 56.5, which is the 2nd highest of the week. And the Vikings have the 2nd highest implied point total of 29, trailing only the Kansas City Chiefs. This is, again, one of those matchups where any piece I could get, I want in my lineup. If you do DFS, love Madison this week. He's a great start. Even without Dalvin, I wish the Vikings kind of used him more, like he's such a good back, and we've seen what happens with Dalvin. But yeah, he's a great start. And then I'll go over to my wide receiver start while I'm at it. Do any of you own Odell Beckham?
No, I don't.
I wish.
Nah.
No.
Okay, so I own Odell in one league, and it's my main dynasty league. And it took me the entire last year, right? That I'm seeing here. I'm starting Odell every week. He's putting up 8 points, 6 points, 10 points, 12. You're like, bro, you think he's going from Eli to Baker? You're looking at that as an improvement. And we saw the huge regression Baker had last year. But now, hopefully, at least I know that going into this year, Odell's not that locked and loaded top 10 receiver that we've seen in years past, especially with the Giants. But when he's in a plus matchup, when he's playing a bad defense, he's played Cincy, Washington, Dallas this year. He's averaged almost 22 points per game in those matchups. When he's playing tough defenses, Baltimore and Indy, he's averaging 8 points per game. Now you see here and you see Pittsburgh, you're like, oh, this is a tough matchup, right? Pittsburgh's amazing against running backs. They're top 5 in the league against fantasy running backs, but against wide receivers, they're bottom 5. Listen to what some of these guys are putting up. Week 1, they play the Giants. Darius Slayton got 6 catches, 102 yards, and 2 touchdowns.
Travis is coming up.
Week 2, Sutton, he got hurt midway through, and Judy combined, though, 7 catches, 128 yards. Week 3, somehow Randall Cobb got 4 catches for 95 yards and a touchdown. Randall Cobb hasn't been relevant in like 4 years.
It's coming up.
Week 4, you got the bye, and week 5, you got your man. How do you pronounce the last name? Travis Fulgham?
I don't know.
Travis
but it doesn't
Fulgham,
matter.
yeah.
Fulgham, 10 catches, 152 yards and a touchdown. Like, they were making practice squad guys and Randall Cobb, who's washed up, looking like top 10 players at the wide receiver position. Now, they're constantly living up wide receiver ones, and they're also letting up a lot of big plays. So they're second most in the NFL in terms of air yards per game. The only team that's given up more air yards is the Seattle Seahawks, and we know how terrible that secondary has been this year. And we know how Odell is. He loves the big plays. We saw what he did against Dallas. So I'm expecting a big game from Odell. I could see a 40, 50-yard touchdown. And I love Stefanski. He's getting really creative with him, using him in the running game, reverses. That trick play with Jarvis was obviously amazing. So I love Odell this week.
And for tight end?
So tight end's
like
hard
the
because
most irrelevant position in fantasy.
It's irrelevant, but most leagues you still need to start one, right? So going into the season, you have your regular guys, you have your Kelsey, Kittle, Andrews, but one guy that's broken out and hasn't really got talked about much is Jonnu Smith.
Yeah,
I don't know.
I have.
He's been playing really well. He's tight end 4 on the week in PPR leagues, and he's missed a game already. So it's time. This is the same thing I have with Tannehill, man. We got to start respecting the Titans. Like, they went to the AFC Chip last year. That wasn't a fluke, and he's averaging nearly 7 targets per game, which is 6th highest among all tight ends. And even with A.J. Brown back last week, he still saw 7 targets a game. And it's one thing to have skill in football, but you need to have the opportunity as well. Seeing 7 targets, you're up there with the guys like Travis Kelce and Andrews. Like, that's the target share they're getting. As I mentioned previously, this is also a high-scoring game, 52.5 over-under. So wherever I get pieces, I know some people probably already own A.J. Brown, but Jonnu Smith is a really good player. He's obviously probably not available on your waiver wire, but that's my favorite start this week at the tight end position.
Okay, now let's get into the players you want to bench. You are not comfortable starting or putting in your lineup this week. Who are those 3 players? Give me 3.
All right, so I'm going to start the quarterback position. This one hurts me because I'm a big Joe Burrow fan. I came into the year, I love Joe Burrow. Wasn't an LSU fan, but just seeing like what they have in Cincy from a fantasy football perspective, Joe Burrow is really talented. The wide receivers, Tyler Boyd's a top like 20 wide receiver. He just doesn't get talked about like that. T. Higgins has played really well. AJ Green is the worst out of all 3 of them. Joe Mixon, even though he hasn't been exactly efficient, he's still a decent running back, and he knows how to pass protect, catch the ball at the backfield. The only thing that scared me was the offensive line. That's what we saw last week against Baltimore. So he had 7 sacks last week against Baltimore. Indy is a really good defense who he plays this week, but they don't get sacks like Baltimore does. The only thing is they give up 12.5 points to quarterbacks. It doesn't matter who they play. Indy's defense has been amazing this year. It's been first in the NFL in almost every statistical category, first, second, third, and they're projected to score 19 points. Guess how much the Jets are projected to score?
21.
18.5.
Okay.
So they're projected to score the same amount of points as the Jets, and we know how god-awful the Jets have been. So I'm saying far away from Joe Burrow and every piece on this offense. All right, so getting into running backs. Do any of you guys follow the Denver Broncos?
Yeah.
A little bit.
They're terrible too. Right? They're like, there's no 2 ways about it. Like, we saw the Denver Jets game. Like, that was just the battle of the number 1 pick, it seemed like. And the Broncos, I guess, I don't know if you want to count that as a win or a loss, but either way, the Broncos are really bad. And I'm staying far away from Melvin Gordon, and possibly Phillip Lindsay. So earlier this week, I don't know if you saw, Melvin Gordon had the DUI, and then he had this kind of freak illness today. He needs to be symptom-free tomorrow, pass his COVID test, obviously. So there's a chance he doesn't play. If he's in or he's out, I'm not starting Melvin Gordon or Phillip Lindsay. I mean, the Patriots have been phenomenal this year against the running back. So they're top 10 against fantasy running backs, giving up 18 points per game to their entire backfield. We're not just talking about one guy, their backfield in total. And the Broncos have an implied point total of 17.5. That's the lowest out of any team. That's lower than the Jets. That's lower than I just mentioned Cincy. Like, they're projecting them basically to score nothing. Melvin Gordon, while he's had his fair share of decent games, he's basically touchdown reliant, which means if you don't get a touchdown, you're not happy with him. He's only averaged 4.1 yards per reception, so he is seeing a few targets, but he's not doing much with them. The only way Melvin Gordon does anything somewhat relevant is if he gets a touchdown. And against that Patriots defense, I know Belichick's not going to just give it to them, especially there's no garbage time against Belichick, so you got to just sit there and pray he somehow finds the end zone, because there's no other way he becomes relevant in this game. Now, moving on to tight ends. Tight ends, man, I could have picked probably like 10 tight end busts, honestly.
Give us your receiver. Give us your receiver.
Receiver, right?
Give us 2 receivers, man. Nobody care about the tight ends, man.
So the wide receiver bust, there's a few tough matchups this week, but my biggest one is probably Terry McLaurin. Now, this hurts me again because I love Scary Terry. I drafted him in my main league team, and it just pains me every week to see Washington just kind of like not care about what they're doing at the quarterback position. Now, they brought in Kyle Allen, and when he got sat for Haskins, I'm like, okay, maybe this is a decent, change of pace. Haskins hasn't been crazy accurate, but I mean, we saw that game. Kyle Allen looked bad. Alex Smith looked bad. And the Giants, who aren't a good defense, but James Bradbury has been a lockdown corner this year. Week 1 against Juju, he had 6 for 69. Allen Robinson had 3 for 33. This is reception yards, by the way. Brandon Ayuk had 3 for 31. Robert Woods had 6 for 36. Amari Cooper just had 2 catches for 23 yards. Like, James Bradbury has been shutting everybody down. This game is the lowest over under the entire slate of games by a whole 2 points, 42.5. And with minimal scoring, 2 bad offenses, 2 bad defenses, I just want nothing to do with this game, man.
Are you benching Hayden Hurst?
That's funny because I have to start Hurst in one of my leagues.
Because personally,
I went into this draft with Hayden Hurst. It's a dynasty startup. It was Hayden Hurst, Chris Herndon, who I thought maybe bounce back year, and Blake
tough.
Jarwin. And now I'm sitting here and I just have Hayden Hurst. Now, tight ends at that landscape where you probably don't have a better option. I mean, you're probably looking at Hayden Hurst or someone off the waiver wire, So, I mean, if you have like another name you could throw out, I could probably give you some more advice. But that Atlanta game's a really high over-under, so I don't mind it. He's been getting a decent amount of targets as well, about 5-6 targets per game, so that's good to see. But we've just seen the last couple of weeks, he's not been able – him and Matt Ryan really haven't been on the same page. Mm-hmm. So you're looking pretty similar. Like, you need a touchdown for him to be relevant. But in terms of just tight ends in general, you could do worse.
All right, and now getting into the last topic, sleepers. Who are your sleepers for this week, week 6?
All right, so we already talked about Ryan Tannehill. He was my quarterback sleeper, right?
Wentz.
Wentz isn't happening, bro. You seen that offensive line?
Yeah.
You seen your receivers?
You seen Wentz?
Huh?
Have you seen Wentz?
You're a Jets fan, bro.
That too. Oh, okay. Listen, we know we suck. You guys just think you're good because you're in a bad division.
Hey, listen, man. Doesn't matter.
Remind me, who are the Eagles playing this week?
Baltimore. We're gonna win.
Whoa.
We're gonna win.
Whoa.
All right, let's get into your
battle. Like, you're gonna have more turnovers than them. Like, what y'all better win?
Let's get into your sleepers.
All right, so running back sleeper. This is one of my favorite. I argued about making him my star of the week. It's David Montgomery. Mm-hmm. Now, this is mostly because of matchup. So he's playing in Carolina against the Panthers, and the Panthers are the worst team against all fantasy running backs, giving up almost 32 points per game to the entire backfield. And if you saw last week's game, Todd Gurley looked like 3 years ago Todd Gurley, where he was borderline MVP rushing. He had 14 carries, 121 yards and a touchdown, 4 catches for almost 30 yards through the air. Todd Gurley looked amazing last week against this Panthers defense. And since Tariq Cohen has gone down, he's gotten even more involved in the passing game, which is something you really want to see out of your fantasy running backs because points are more valuable per target compared to per rush. Because obviously you get a target out of the backfield. In most leagues, half PPR has kind of been the standard, so automatically 0.5 right there. And you're more likely to get more yards through the air than just running the ball in general. So since Cohen went down in week 3, he went from averaging 3 targets a game to now averaging 7 targets a game. That's a huge increase, and with that, he's going to have a higher floor. And there were rumors about Lev going to the Bears. Thankfully, it didn't happen. The only other option there really is Cordero Patterson, and he's nothing special at this point. Another point is the Bears probably should win this game. I think they're better than Carolina. They're 3-point favorites according to Vegas. The Bears have a really strong defense as well, so I don't see Carolina putting up like 30, 40 points like they have been in the last couple weeks. So I really like David Montgomery this week. In your favorite position, you want tight end too?
Nah, don't give us a tight end. Give us a receiver and your sleeper defense that you'll pick.
Okay, I'll give you my receiver first.
Okay.
So it might be a little hot take because of his name. You don't think sleeper, but for me, it's Juju. Now, Juju's someone who I feel like has been disrespected this year. Think about the year after Antonio Brown left, right? He put up 2 years where he was putting up like historic paces going in. Like he's like, oh, he's this crazy talented receiver. In dynasty leagues, he was the first wide receiver off the board. And then all of a sudden, AB leaves and Juju's getting double and triple teamed. And now everyone's off Juju. like, oh, he can't do it without AB, this and that. But they're finally starting to get pieces to complement him. Last year, obviously, with Big Ben going down, Deontay Johnson being second year, I think James Washington was a rookie. They didn't really have the pieces around him. But we see this year with Deontay Johnson, who's really coming to his own, and Chase Claypool, who balled out last week. I think Juju has the pieces around him to perform well. And one thing about fantasy is you can't predict touchdowns. You could predict through targets. You could kind of see like a pattern with targets. He's getting 7 targets, 8 targets, 10, whatever. But touchdowns can be pretty sporadic. Now, Chase Claypool is not going to have 4 touchdowns, which means those touchdowns have to be spread out among other players. Juju's still on the field more than any receiver. He's playing 81% of snaps, but still has yet to lead the team in targets on any particular week. Deontay Johnson has already been ruled out for this game. And with Claypool coming back down to earth, I really see this as a bounce back game for Juju. And once again, the matchup's really nice. The Browns are the 3rd worst in the NFL, giving up 39 points per game to fantasy receivers. Another high over-under game of 51. And Pitt has an implied point total of 27.5, which is once again, top 8 across the league. You want my defense too, right?
Yeah.
Defense is easy, man. Whoever's playing the Jets. This week it's Miami. Next week, who do we got? The Bills? Chargers?
Wow.
Bills, I'm pretty sure.
Bills, just look at the schedule. Whoever's playing the Jets, just pencil that in for my sleeper of the week.
So I actually have a defensive pick. I started this defense in my league. Washington against the Giants. How do you feel about that?
I'm in, man. Daniel Jones makes so many mistakes. That defense, that front 7 solid.
Yeah.
Chase Young finally came back last week, but that front 7 solid. And Daniel Jones just fumbles the ball. He makes dumb plays, interceptions. Like anything that he could do to make the Giants worse will happen.
Damn.
Definitely. So we thank you for being on this segment. A lot of useful knowledge, and we hope to have you back. It's going to be a reoccurring thing.
Of course,
week to
have
week.
me back. I'll be here, man.
Yes, sir.
I'll get some tight end takes in there for you guys.
All right. Thank you.
I appreciate it, guys.
I'm actually going to use a lot of that. Like, I just took down, mental notes. I'm changing my lineups now.
All right. So this does it for this episode of the Pick a Side podcast. If you guys enjoy our podcast, please share it as it helps us grow. Follow us on Instagram at Pick a Side Podcast and subscribe to our YouTube channel at Pick a Side. And for those of you who would like to help out the show, you can donate to us on Patreon. To find our site, simply type in patreon.com/pickasidepodcast, and you can look at the tiers and choose what you want to pick. Thank you for your support, and thank you for watching, and see you next time.